All right, let's talk about Impact. I should note that they opened with the recap of the Dixie deal from last week's reaction, which, as noted last week, why would you air a major angle on the B show at 11 p.m. on Thanksgiving night unless you're just a complete fucking idiot? And the answer, of course, is they're complete fucking idiots. But they recapped it here, and I guess there was an addition that we did not see last week, which was them asking Dixie what's next. And she said she had nothing more to say tonight, but would have plenty to say in court. Hopefully not the California State Athletic Commission. Might also add that there was absolutely no follow-up other than this on this program.
That's all that happened.
Not a single mention by Eric Bischoff of, oh shit, what's going on?
Not a single appearance by Eric Bischoff.
No Hulk Hogan.
They were both gone. And since they were both gone, there was nobody to open the show with a boring promo. So instead they opened the show with a four-way tag match joined in progress.
You know, I'm sure this was a good match, but when the show starts off like this, I start off angry, and I immediately start off by not giving a fuck. Because whenever there's just like 8 dudes having a match...
Just eight human bodies flying around.
No ring introductions. Yeah. You know, there's 8 dudes out there. There's Ric Flair on commentary. There's some dudes behind Ric Flair. At first I thought they were Beer Money. Then I realized Beer Money was actually in the match. The Guns were there. Generation Me was there. I believe Inc. was there. And the most astounding thing about this, somebody just asked about this the other day. They were like, how come when WWE gives away a TLC match for free, in fact, you asked this fucking stupid question as well, when WWE, why when they give away a free TLC match on TV is Bryan not mad, but when TNA does it, Bryan gets upset? And, of course, I pointed out that what they did was they took 2 guys that are not in a match at the pay-per-view, Jerry Lawler and Miz. Those guys aren't wrestling each other at the pay-per-view. They had them do a great TLC match, which everybody was going nuts for. And the idea is you produce this great match on television, and you let people know if you buy the pay-per-view, you're going to get several of these matches. And that's a selling point. Instead, with TNA, they do this. There is a match at the pay-per-view. The match is the Motor City Machine Guns versus Generation Me in a Full Metal Mayhem match, which is in fact a TLC match, quite coincidentally, coming up here in December. So that's the match on the pay-per-view. So what did they give us on TV to give us a taste of that match at the pay-per-view? Did they give us a great TLC match with 2 individuals not in that match at the pay-per-view? No, of course not. They gave us a TLC match that involved Beer Money and Inc. and the Machine Guns and Generation Me. A TLC match. So, basically, they gave you a match on TV and essentially said, if you buy the pay-per-view, we are going to give you less. We're going to give you this exact same match with 2 less teams. All right. Not a selling point to me, quite frankly. They did a bunch of moves, did a million wacky things, and then there was a finish. I could not get into this match. I won't lie.
It was akin to opening a beehive and just watching bees fly around. Kind of exciting for a while, but who cares? They brought out a ladder. Saban did a giant dive off the ladder onto the Generation Me guys. Even this, everything in the Generation Me has to be a big, giant, convoluted spot. There was like a head scissors on the floor, and there was a chair shot to the head in there, and then Saban hit this giant dive. When he hit the giant dive, apparently it wiped out all 4 men on both teams. It then broke down into a tag team match.
Yeah, I love that.
With Beer Money versus Inc. And Inc. won.
What are people thinking? Either the wrestlers or the people that put these matches together. This is not strictly a... well, actually, I don't know if we've ever seen this in WWE now that I think about it, but the idea of we're going to do a match with no rules and weapons, and we're going to hit each other with weapons, and we're gonna all brawl at the same time in the ring, and we're going to all fight inside and outside, and then in the middle of the match, we're all going to go to our corners and politely wait for tags. What are people thinking? Why would you ever do that in a match? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Like let's say that you're at the bar and some guy hits on your woman and you get all pissed off and you grab a pool cue and you start swinging and he grabs a glass bottle and he breaks it on the bar and then he starts swinging and like you whack him in the head with this fucking pool cue and he gashes you with this glass and you're bleeding and there's all this violence and debauchery and then all of a sudden in the middle of it you both stop and you ask for an unbiased referee. And then you have a competitive
an
athletic contest using the 10-point must system and the unified rules. Would that ever fucking happen?
No.
It's ridiculous. So anyway, I did not like this opening segment one bit.
So the Robert Roode got pinned. The heels all blamed this on that Jackson James ref guy who Ric Flair did not know his name, called him Jack Daniels, Jimmy Jack, whatever. They went to beat him up. As they were beating him up, Flair was standing on the ramp approving. Matt Morgan's music played. Flair's reaction to this was great. He was confused, didn't know where the music was coming from. Morgan came out, put him in a chokehold, and they basically did a hostage exchange, Flair for the ref. So, and that was that. Morgan got the ref to safety, Flair threw a fit, and then it ended.
Let me get mad about something that hasn't happened yet. Maybe I'll be wrong, but doubtful. This Jackson James fella, Eric Bischoff's kid, legit. And the way they're doing this storyline, I mean, is it not patently obvious that at some point he's going to fuck Matt Morgan?
Oh, of course.
So, you know, this would be fine and all if I don't have a problem with knowing where shit's going. You know, like, I mean, I still expect Triple H to return Monday because, as noted, Sheamus just won King of the Ring, and Triple H's gimmick is King of Kings. Obviously, the feud when Hunter returns is with Sheamus. It all makes sense. You know what I mean? So if it happens Monday, it's not like I'm going to be pissed off that I figured this out.
In fact, you would be pissed off if Triple H picked a fight with, say, the Usos.
Well, yeah, that's the point I'm making here.
Yes.
See, if a blind man can see that Jackson James is turning, as long as it makes sense, great. But Jackson James has been beaten up by the heels and humiliated week after week. And that's going to continue all the way up until the day that he fucks Matt Morgan. And then he's going to hug all these men that have been beating him up for weeks and weeks and weeks. And they're going to celebrate because nobody saw it coming. Even though everybody saw it coming. Because this is every fucking stupid swerve that they ever do.
Yes.
And it's going to make absolutely no sense.
Like every stupid swerve they ever do.
Yeah. I'm not praying that he doesn't turn. But what would you say the odds are that Jackson James is going to turn heel on Matt Morgan and join up with Fortune?
High 90s. High 90%.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll wait until it happens. But there's my preemptive strike.
See, I don't think I'll be angry when it happens because I know it's going to happen. They're going to do something stupid.
Yeah.
Well, how can I get angry about this anymore? So Mickey was backstage. She was going to sing tonight. She said she could not wait to sing her theme song. She's interrupted by Orlando and Eric Young. Eric, to make a long, stupid story short, he wanted to play cowbell. And he played cowbell down the alley. This took like a minute to do. So then we came back from the commercial. Nikki was doing her concert. She sang her song, so if you like her entrance music, you really like this concert. Eric Young came out in his wrestling trunks and chaps and a cowboy hat. He was, in fact, playing the cowbell and dancing and shaking his ass. Mickey didn't know what to make of this. So then Tara attacked her from behind. Eric tried to make the save. Tara laid him out, too. That was funny. And Tara and Mickey brawled. Mickey's skirt flew up and her top almost fell down. So that's a win.
I don't want to come off as sexist here. I don't know. Let me just say this. I don't want people to read anything into this except what I'm saying. You ever seen, like, a girl that wears, like, a shirt that's, like, open a lot and her cleavage is just spilling out?
Those are fond memories, yes.
And if you happen to glance at this, you're considered a pig. You know?
Mm-hmm, yes.
That's ridiculous. It's just, like, I don't know if this was planned by Mickey or what the deal was, but her top was not staying on. To the point where she had to do an entire brawl holding on to her shirt so that her breasts did not spill out.
Yeah, she had a one-armed brawl.
So why do you wear that, is just my question.
Maybe this was a shoot sneak attack.
It's like, they do this on WWE too, and I just get infuriated. These girls there's going to be a brawl, and so the girls come out in short skirts, and the brawl occurs, and they spend the entire time pulling their skirts down. Which begs the question, why did you wear a skirt that obviously is going to ride up? You know what I mean?
I don't have an answer.
Like, if you're so concerned that your ass is going to show, then why would you wear a skirt to a segment where you're going to have a brawl? Just baffled me. So yeah, she was wearing an outfit that in no way should have been involved in a brawl unless she was happy with her ass and her boobs spilling out all over the place, which apparently she was not. So, as noted, she did this entire brawl holding on to her skirt to make sure that her special places did not fall out. So this was wacky. And I might add, to cut to the chase, they brawled for approximately 90 minutes, which shows an amazing amount of
the most amazing athletic feat on Impact all year.
Sure, I guess. Yeah, this was Hoist Gracie and Sakuraba level conditioning here.
Yeah, Jackson James outright said he wanted to be Matt Morgan's referee so he could raise Morgan's hand when Morgan beat Jeff Hardy. Morgan said he didn't want to put Jackson in danger. So they've already teased Jackson being the guy who was screwing Morgan there.
Yeah.
Flair said that if Morgan didn't name a special referee tonight, he was going to revoke the privilege and name a ref himself. And I asked myself, can he do that? And as I did that, Flair said, I have the power to do this.
Which brings up many questions. First off, why does Ric Flair have the right to revoke Matt Morgan's ability to choose a ref? And if he does, why doesn't he right now?
I don't know.
Second, my big question was, since when does Matt Morgan have the right to choose a referee? They later explained that he had won it. I'm not entirely sure in what match.
It was like 2 weeks ago when he beat Flair, because Flair cut the promo at the beginning of the show where I thought he named himself ref, and then said he was going to wrestle Morgan to see
true.
Who could pick the ref.
I'm going to, let's talk about we'll talk about the Devon promo when we get to it. Go ahead.
We then had the first great segment of the show. Doug Williams cut a promo backstage, basically saying every time he wrestled Kazarian, he had beat him, he was going to do it again, and he was going to give Kazarian a lesson on how to wrestle. So Kazarian and Doug Williams had a great match in 4 minutes, or whatever it was. It was just a great, non-stop, all-action, X-Division style match, and Doug Williams won with the greatest Chaos Theory suplex of all time.
I'll say.
And I give a lot of the credit to that to Kazarian, who got super high with this German and waved his arms in the air as if grasping for help. Mm-hmm. And he was planted on his back and pinned. This was great.
Then we had the most awesome segment. I fell in love with this segment. Devon came out and called out Bubba. And Bubba was nowhere to be found until Devon called him a coward. Then he showed up wearing a jacket from the Ribera Steakhouse in Japan. It was the color of the sun.
He was, in fact, yellow.
Twice as bright, I might add.
He was a yellow coward.
So, Bubba refused to get in the ring, and Devon said that he was nothing but a bully and a coward. Could not believe that Bubba was telling people that Devon was the weak link. Said if it was not for me, there wouldn't even have been a Team 3D. Talked about how Taz got them in ECW. Bubba looked at him and said, look at that, he's washed up just like you. Taz grabbed the mic, and this was where I really was just like, and granted, the guy's never going to wrestle, but Taz did the most fucking awesome promo. He said it sucked to see these guys fighting like this, but he said Bubba didn't need to disrespect him. He got called into the ring, and he needed to cross the line and get his ass in there. I am washed up, he said, but he's not, so get your ass in the ring. And it was this point that I realized that Taz is the best promo in all of TNA. Because Ric Flair has, like, great delivery, but first off, half of Flair's promos, he goes into business for himself, and he says this weird bullshit that like, nobody makes him do again. So, you know, he fired Gunnar Murphy, and then they're on the show next week, and then he made that weird comment about how he can revoke Matt Morgan's right to choose a referee, which makes no fucking sense. He just says a bunch of shit, and then the other half of the time, he has such a great promo that everybody cheers him as a babyface. So, to me, delivery aside, That's not the best promo in the company. Taz, however, Taz is old. Taz is washed up. Taz is a fat announcer. But Taz's gimmick was that he was a badass that would fuck you up. And when Taz cuts a promo, for a moment you believe if Taz went down there, he would beat the shit out of Bubba Ray Dudley. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
A man with a bad neck, an announcer who probably has not worked out much in years and years.
50 pounds heavier than when he wrestled.
His promos are out-fucking-standing. So, Devon was also outstanding in this deal here.
Yeah, that's the only reason I must disagree with you that Taz is the best promo in the company, because I think he's the third best promo in this segment.
Well, Bubba didn't really do anything.
Maybe not. In this segment, Bubba Ray did not do anything to stand out, but show in and show out, he cuts great promos. Devon was the king of men here. Calling Bubba out. Literally, he called him a bully. It was a very simple promo, but it was very passionate, and it made sense. He said that if you wanted to jump me from behind, that's fine. Go ahead and come and get me now to my face. And Bubba wouldn't do it because he's a bully and a coward. Mm-hmm. So Devon, in fact, at one point put the mic down and turned around, and Bubba went to run into the ring. And as soon as he did, Devon turned around, and Bubba turned tail and headed for the hills.
Mm-hmm.
Devon finally said he is sick of this. He said, testify and let's do this. And he went through the ropes to get to Bubba. Bubba grabbed SoCal Val, hid behind her, then threw her into Devon and ran for his life. And then it ended.
Somebody on the board was...
This is a perfect segment.
On noting the other day that I love the idea that Bryan and Vinny have that the same formula will work year after year. Please tell me any time in the future that the formula of a babyface who won't back down and challenges a coward to a fight, and the coward refuses to engage, and thus you want to actually see the hero get his hands on the coward.
Especially when like this...
Please tell me when this story is not going to work.
They have already established that the coward does in fact have an ass kicking coming his way.
Yes.
This man needs his ass kicked.
Yes. So anyway, I want to see this match. I am happy to purchase the pay-per-view to see this match. They better fucking not screw this up.
They will.
Let me tell you. I need to see... I don't care if Bubba fucks him and gets the win. That's what should happen if this is going to continue.
Yeah.
But I expect
AJ Styles runs out and beats up both guys, for example.
Yeah. I expect that Devon will attack him without a lockup, because if they lock up, I'm going to be pissed off. But I think these two know enough to not fucking do a lockup. I expect Devon to jump him and beat the shit out of him for a long, long time. And then Bubba does something dastardly and underhanded and gets the win. And we have to pay to see a rematch at the next pay-per-view, presumably in a stipulation match. Hopefully these two guys...
I was just going to say, they may be booking their own angle here.
If they're booking their own angle, then we're in for a treat.
There is hope, then. In fact, there are high standards if they're doing that.
The first match is a singles match, which does that is evidence to the idea that perhaps these two men are booking this.
Yes.
So anyway, this was the best Impact segment in months.
I love this segment when it happened, and now that we've talked about it, I love it 1,000 times more.
Yeah.
This was perfect. We should have stopped watching here. Because the very next segment, I'll just read my notes. Pope and Joe, who are tag teaming for Christ knows what reason, talk about how much they hate each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, you will recall that Pope and Joe brawled to the back in their 8-man elimination tag last week, and now they have been put together as tag team partners for Christ knows what reason.
Sarita and Angelina and Madison Rayne in a 3-way. Tara came out with Madison, but Mickey, who had changed into an amazingly small white T-shirt, which I was fine with, I might add, attacked her. They brawled backstage, and Sarita got wiped out, and Madison and Angelina worked the entire match. That's the question why it was a 3-way.
Sarita and Madison, I think Madison was on the apron, but the point is the match hadn't actually started yet. They were staring at each other, and Madison clunks her with the title belt, and Sarita rolls to the floor. Mm-hmm. Then, as you noted, Madison and Angelina had a one-on-one match.
Yeah.
Somewhere in here, Madison got the belt again. She clunked Angelina with the belt. Now Angelina's laid out. Madison then turns her back to celebrate. Sarita then returned from the dead, snuck into the ring, and rolled onto Angelina's dead form to steal the pin. Mm-hmm. That was all of her offense. She made a cover. The announcer said that The announcer said that Sarita was now on a roll.
That's what they said.
because she did nothing.
I was even more upset when in the very next segment, Angelina's backstage and she's pissed that she lost 2 matches in a row. And I thought, do the winners get more money in TNA? Is that the storyline? Because they've never explained that.
You sure as hell don't get more title matches.
I mean, to me in TNA, wins and losses don't matter at all. So if they don't matter at all, then it's like if you're mad about losing, it's something within you. So if that's the case,
your own ingrained flaw.
Yeah, but if this was real life, why would Angelina really consider that a loss? She had the match won, and someone stole her pin. You know what I mean?
No, Angelina got pinned.
She got pinned?
Madison had the match won.
Oh. Well, no wonder Angelina was pissed. I apologize to TNA for that one right there.
Okay.
I'm willing to be a big man and admit I was wrong. So, yeah, then Winter showed up and said Angelina was perfect. And now they were together, and the two of them would never lose again. And Angelina wanted to know what she meant, and so Winter said, let's talk. So anyway, Winter is now a human.
Well, that happened last week.
Mm-hmm.
She's just a girl walking around the Impact Zone now.
Yeah.
We had Matt Morgan versus Rhino. Morgan bled like a minute in. I guess is to promote the first blood match Rhino and RVD are going to have.
Actually, you missed a brief thing here.
Right.
They announced that AJ and Doug Williams were wrestling on Sunday. And the only reason I mentioned this was because earlier in the show, I don't know if this happened because of the way that they taped the commentary or if they taped shit out of order, but earlier in the show, Mike Tenay was almost marking out about how he could not wait to see AJ versus Doug Williams in a match. And then an hour later, he announced it, and he could not, and this is Mike Tenay we're talking about here, he could not have expressed such utter indifference if he tried. I mean, he merely said, we've just been informed, AJ versus Doug Williams on Sunday. Matt Morgan and Rhino. And I was like, weren't you just going nuts to see this particular match, and now you announce it and you could not possibly care less? So that was a weird little faux pas.
Yeah, they're bad at what they do. So, yes, Morgan was bleeding a minute.
Brilliant.
Yes, they had a fine match, all things considered. Morgan dodged the gore. He hit the carbon footprint. He had the win, but fortunate attack for the DQ.
Let me talk about that. Seriously. Matt Morgan is challenging for the World Heavyweight title on the pay-per-view Sunday, and you couldn't give him a win on television on the go-home show?
Oh, Brian, you've got to protect Rhino.
I figured that if I asked anybody why that was done, they'd have that exact same question, which begs this fucking question.
Yeah?
Why did you book this match then?
Actually, there's an even better question to ask. Oh, that is a good one. But then why did Rhino get pinned by Tommy Dreamer last week?
That's not that entirely. Why? There was no one on this show that Matt Morgan could beat in dominating fashion to set up his championship match on Sunday.
Win over anybody.
I just could not even. I mean, I don't even know why I say I couldn't believe this. Of course I can believe this, but I couldn't believe this. There's some things that are just like, can you really be so fucking stupid that you can't give Matt Morgan a win on the go-home show prior to the pay-per-view? Yes. But the answer is, in fact, no, we could not. This was beyond us. This was beyond our booking capabilities to give the challenger in the championship match a win on television on the last show before the pay-per-view. So, yeah, they're idiots.
So, yes, Fortune ran in. They were working him over. Jeff Hardy came out with a chair. He had them hold Morgan. He was going to clunk him in the chair and said, no, turn him around. I want to hit him in the back of the head like I hit Anderson. That was Anderson's cue to return. They hit his music. He came down to the ring with a lead pipe. He cleaned house. People went crazy. He went to commercial. He cut a promo. He said he had been in the business 11 years and had only done this a handful of times. He turned to Morgan and he said, thank you.
Let me talk about this a little bit.
I didn't think,
the more I think about the show, the more I didn't like it. Think about Anderson as I don't see Anderson as having top babyface charisma. I see him as having upper mid-card heel charisma. But, when he came back, the place did go apeshit. They were so goddamn excited to see Mr. Anderson. And then when he cut this promo, he put them into a coma.
Yeah. Yes.
His promos are horrendous. They are horrendous. And this was a prime example of that. He managed to take an excited crowd full of pissers, like peeing on themselves, and made them just...
Pissers, you say?
Sure. Oh, what else?
Those who piss.
Yeah. And by the end of this, they were just like, man, I'd like to piss on myself again for some excitement. That is a drop for you, everybody.
Your mind just broke.
I just can take no more of this.
Yes, he talked about Jeff. He said they all hated each other, all the wrestlers, but they
have a code.
Jeff broke the code when he hit him in the head with a chair. He said he didn't remember what he did for the past month. That's a shoot.
Which means he remembers everything perfectly.
And he said, Jeff will get his, and he should be the guest referee. It took him like 4 minutes to get that out.
Excruciating.
And he does... I don't even know how to describe it, but he's trying to be funny. See, he's upper mid-card sort of comedy babyface.
Yeah.
Because people do like it, but he's telling jokes.
Telling jokes that aren't really all that funny.
They aren't really all that funny.
Or witty.
No.
Nor is his delivery any good.
Aside from that, everything's great.
He should be on the California State Athletic Commission board because... it's basically what I saw from several people today ruling on Chael Sonnen. Robbie E. and Jay Lethal.
Okay.
Robbie E.
First of all, Robbie E. and Cookie are making their entrance. We were told this is going to be a New Jersey fist pump showdown.
Mm-hmm.
So Robbie E. and Cookie are coming down. Their music is playing. It is very close to disco music, ironically. It's going thump, 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 and they get down to almost to the ring, and lo and behold, sitting there in the middle of the aisle for no reason is a shark cage.
Yeah. A shark cage, everyone.
A cage to prevent sharks from entering. And we were then told that at the pay-per-view, Cookie was going to be in this cage, and then the cage was going to be above the ring.
So they said.
Why? They claimed... it was because Cookie kept interfering in Robbie's matches.
This is why...
I think that's happened seriously once.
This is just like... this is why TNA, everyone thinks it's so stupid. They're randomly having a match where Cookie, everybody. Mm-hmm. Not Ric Flair,
Not Jim Cornette. Not Paulie Dangerously.
Well, these people don't work for TNA. I'm trying to give you an example of someone in TNA right now.
Well, I was using that historically because when those people, or even I think Missy Hyatt did one, but the point is, you take someone who does interfere, who does screw up matches for months and months and months.
Well, that's the idea.
I believe, and I'm totally serious, I believe Cookie has interfered in Robbie E's matches one time. Perhaps twice.
That was a big match. It was for the X Division title.
So who would care if she's in a cage above the ring?
I want to know why she has to be in a cage above the ring. They can't just lock her in a cage at ringside. She might hop repeatedly and get closer and closer to the ring.
Rock the cage back and forth, lean into the ring.
Yeah, maybe like tip it over and then stand up and tip it over again like it's a hamster wheel. I guess maybe she should be above the ring. Hadn't thought about this before. Although seeing her wrestle, there's no way she'd be able to maneuver that thing like a hamster wheel. Impossible. She'd end up going backwards.
So, yes. So they got in the ring. Lethal came out. He looked, as Taz said, like a bum.
I got to say this though about this segment. When they announced it was a fist pump challenge, and they bring out Robbie E, and Jay Lethal comes out looking just as morose as possible, I thought, okay, if you're gonna do this, this is how you do it right. You have Robbie E. just look like a complete goddamn idiot doing fist pumps. And then Jay Lethal gets ready to do the fist pump, and he fist pumps his fist right into Robbie E.'s face.
Correct.
It's like, this is what you have to do. And I had like no faith that they would actually do this. But sure as shit, Robbie E. goes out there, and he does the most fantastic fist pumping you've ever seen.
He, and I mean this in the highest compliment it can be, he made a complete idiot out of himself.
Yes, and it was outstanding.
Wonderful.
It was outstanding.
He was very proud of this idiocy. He was overjoyed to be such a fool. Lethal began to cut a promo about what would happen if Robbie E. went into his section of Jersey.
Which actually was funny because he was like,
Yeah. From what I heard about Jersey, there are worse neighborhoods.
He goes, if you went into my neighborhood, 4 things would happen to you. First off, I think he said they would make fun of you.
He would get laughed at, then beat up.
Then
he would steal his shoes.
And tie him to a pole.
Hang them from my telephone pole.
What?
Yeah, I would have... there are areas of Jersey where they will do things like shoot you and stab you.
They wouldn't steal your shoes and shove them up your ass, for example. If they're going to steal your shoes and tie them to a telephone pole?
Cement shoes and throw you into the river. Yes.
People in Bothell would laugh at that prank.
Actually, last time I saw shoes from the pole was in Bothell.
Well, that's true. They do that around here.
But yeah. But we don't have people fighting on national television either. So, yeah, so that part of it was goofy. But then he said, if I'm going to do this, let's do it. And he cocked his hat askew, and they played the music, and he started into it, and he pumped his fist a little bit, and then a little more, and then he turned and he punched Robbie E. in the face. Everyone went crazy, and they started to brawl.
Let me talk about the brawl.
Okay, before up to the brawl, I loved the segment. I may have been the only one.
No, I loved this segment, too.
Okay, good.
I really did love this segment. But then it had to become usual TNA, the whole idea of, well, let's get some extra people on TV just for the shit of it. They brawl backstage, and all you got to do is brawl backstage, and the heels beat up Lethal and leave him laying. Or
run away.
Or run away or whatever. Instead, first they got to go backstage, and then Cookie has got to jump on Jay, and then Christy Hemme has to be there for no reason, because they're like, she's there like they're going to set up for an interview, but of course, no interview ever occurs on the show. So there's no explanation for her being there. So she attacks Cookie, and she throws Cookie into a cage in the back. And then somewhere in here, Christy just disappears, and Cookie gets out of the cage, and then they slam the cage door into Jay and leave him laying. And it's just like, did you really need all that bullshit? Is this a mixed tag on Sunday, or am I missing something here, or did you just have to get Christy Hemme on TV because you're paying her $150,000 a year? So anyway, no buys. Okay, here's what started to happen next. We had a tag team match of the Pope and Samoa Joe versus Jeff Jarrett and Abyss. As they began to wrestle, I thought, boy, it feels like I've been watching this show for hours now. I can't believe there's this and then still the main event. A minute into the match, Impact ended. Mm-hmm. It never crossed my mind for a nanosecond that this would be the main event of the Go Home show. Yes.
I'll repeat this, everyone. The Pope and Samoa Joe versus Jeff Jarrett and Abyss.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because obviously,
please do.
Well, Joe and Jarrett are wrestling in the pay-per-view, and Abyss and Pope are wrestling in the pay-per-view, so they put these men in a tag match. Now, that's not even my biggest problem.
That's actually, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so they do this match, and first off, the Jeff Jarrett MMA gimmick, I've said this before, this was awesome when it started. It is now dumb. He goes out there, half the time he gets out-wrestled and he's horrible, and then the other half of the time he's randomly successfully applying arm bars and dudes have to get the ropes.
He goes back and forth from bumbling buffoon to GSP at his peak.
Can you fucking just decide what you want to do, you jackass? How long has Jeff Jarrett been in this business? And he cannot figure out the most simple storyline. And actually, he hadn't figured out for 2 weeks, and then it just got ruined. So this was stupid. And he went to get the guitar. Joe kicked the guitar. Again, you're facing Joe on Sunday. I presume Joe's going to get his revenge. So can you not just hit Joe with the guitar and put on a hold, and the ref wakes up, and Joe's unconscious, and Jeff Jarrett gets the dastardly win to set up the pay-per-view? Of course not. What they have to do is the ref takes a bump, Jarrett gets the guitar, but Joe kicks the guitar and breaks it, and then grabs it to hit Jarrett, and the ref wakes up, sees Joe with the guitar, and it's a disqualification. So there's a casket at ringside, and the heels beat up the baby faces. They start dragging, I don't remember who, it doesn't matter, Joe, I believe, towards the casket, because they claim, and I quote, that this will weaken him. When they put him in this casket, he will be weakened.
That is what they said.
Yeah, no shit, because there ain't no oxygen in that fucking thing. He'd die, which is weaker. But they're dragging him towards the thing, and of course, it opens up, and there's Kurt Angle. So, the show ends with Kurt chasing off the babyfaces, which begs a number of questions. Number one, why is Abyss and Pope a fucking casket match? I didn't think there was an answer to this question.
Because Vince Russo wanted to do one?
So, question number 1, why is Abyss and Joe a casket match? Question number 2, why, and I would ask this about WWE, why does this casket have magical powers involving other people?
Never been established.
At least, if you're gonna, at least in the illogical world of wrestling, there is an internal logic to caskets in WWE. The only people that magically appear and disappear in them are Undertaker and Kane, for the most part.
And Taker in particular, magically appearing in caskets is one of his many powers.
Yeah, now granted, I'm sure Shawn Michaels did this at one point, and probably some others as well, but, in general, it's just, the guys involved in the deal are the ones that appear and disappear. So, Kurt Angle magically appears in a casket.
Apparently, gold medalists can also teleport.
Okay, now all of that aside, let's just say that they had a great reason for Abyss and the Pope to have a casket match. Let's say that there's a perfectly logical reason why Kurt Angle now, he harnesses the power of physics, or whatever the case might be, and can magically appear and disappear at will. All that aside, if we accept all that, why did the show end with Kurt Angle running dudes off? For the go-home show of a pay-per-view he ain't even fucking on?
I have no earthly idea. I don't know.
This is what happens when Impact has 2 good segments. The show's over and I go, I kind of like that show. And then you go through it segment by segment and you realize, that show sucks.
Yeah.
But I will say, when the show was over, I did not have that overwhelming feeling of hatred, which I often have for this program, so I will say this was a better show than usual.
This was one of the better impacts of the year.
I don't know about of the year.
Certainly of the second half of the year.
Let's not be crazy now. They've had better shows overall than this. But anyway, yeah, that was Impact, everybody. I'm finished talking about it. As they say, I am spent. To the back! We have Vinny here in the studio, going to run down the TNA pay-per-view from last night, top to bottom. And quite frankly, looking at this show, I think I described this on the board as an awesome pay-per-view until it fell into the mouth of hell.
That is, I get your point.
This show was awesome all the way up until the TLC match. And then the last 3 matches just sucked.
They did.
Especially the main event. Quite frankly, this show would have been better if Jeff Hardy wouldn't have been on the show. If they would have just scrapped the main event, this would have been a much better show. The main event was it's like a parallel dimension. I was thinking about this during AJ Styles versus Doug Williams. I could talk about TNA for years. I have been. So they have this deal now where there are important TNA pay-per-views and not important TNA pay-per-views. So, for example, Bound for Glory is important, whereas Final Resolution here in December is not important. The January show presumably is going to be important. That's why the Team 3D match is taking place in January and not on this show. So anyway, they've got these shows that are not important. Therefore, these shows are not overbooked. For example, if this were an important show, then guaranteed there would have been bullshit in the AJ Styles-Doug Williams match. You know what I mean? There would have been some sort of storyline, or there would have been some sort of wackiness. Instead, because this was a show that was a B show by TNA standards, think about that, everybody. They let the guys go out and have a great match. They had a 4-star match, an easy 4-star match. It was so awesome. And I was sitting there watching going, I wish every show was a B show, because they just let these dudes go out there and have great matches. But then, they just can't help themselves.
See, I was going to say, there's a flaw in your theory. I just went back over my notes. I believe I counted 5 fuck finishes.
Well, there is that, but still, at least you had good matches leading to fuck finishes. The last 3 matches were shitty finishes and shitty matches. So again, it's just like WCW back in the day where they had these awesome undercards, and you were so happy in the middle of these shows. And then the main events were so bad that when it was over, you would get all this feedback about how the show sucked. And I remember at the time going, the show really didn't suck. But the deal is, the last thing that you are stuck with is what you remember. Luckily, I'm a fair man, and I'm able to remember everything else that happened on the show, so I can say that this was... I'll go as far as to say it was a thumbs-up show. There was enough awesome stuff on this show that I recommend buying it. I recommend buying it and then turning it off at the 2-hour mark.
Absolutely.
But I recommend buying it for the first 2 hours. A great 2 hours until the show, as noted, fell off a cliff. So
I did not like it as much as you, but I agree with your general consensus.
That's because you were fucking around with your computer the entire time. If you were actually watching the pay-per-view, you would have realized this was a great show.
My computer was giving me problems.
Final hour. So it did open up it opened and closed in typical TNA fashion. Opened up with black screen, people cheering, perhaps the eternal blackness that Jeff Hardy talks about in his deals.
There was background music playing in the arena.
It's so funny because this shit only happens in TNA. Like, you never see this happen. Even Strikeforce does not open up with, like, a blank screen. So there's a blank screen for a long time, and then finally everything starts working, and Mike Tenay does the first of at least 2 apologies on this show for technical difficulties. So, there you go. I don't even know why he bothered. People expected at this point. So, open up with Beer Money and Ink Inc. 3.5-star match. They had a great opener. Beer Money is awesome. I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but they are great tag team wrestlers, and they brought the absolute best out of Ink Inc. This was the best Ink Inc. match I think I've ever seen. Both guys were really good. The fans were into everything. Beer Money got the heat. Good guys made a comeback. They did a bunch of cool spots. Didn't go on too long. Finally, it broke down into a 4-way. Shannon got cut off by Storm. They hit Jesse with the DWI for the pin. As noted, best match I've ever seen Ink Inc. in. So
Jesse Neal has been wrestling for, I think, 2 years now.
2 thumbs up.
Yes, he's great for his level, his experience level. I actually thought this did go on too long, so that's why I did not like it as much as you did. But it was still good. It was a very simple match. We had 2 teams competing, and then at the end, one of them won. So I gave this a definite thumbs up.
Then we had some weirdness on this show. They did this twice. Tara and Mickey are going to have a Falls Count Anywhere match. Now, of course, in all sports, not just wrestling, the idea is you interview the participants prior to the match. Tara, what are your plans for this match? What do you think is going to happen here? Mickey, what's your prediction? Or whatever. Now, granted, the question's always stupid, but still, that's what you do. Not in TNA. They've made a change. Now they interview someone not in the match. In this match, Tara and Mickey, they interviewed Madison Rayne. And I don't even know what she said, because on top of this idea of interviewing the non-participants, they've got this new deal. Maybe it's not new. Maybe I just noticed it here. But they apparently put the camera on a swing set, and they set it to zoom in and out completely at random. Infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. I thought I might vomit watching this interview.
We have seen many camera interviews done with a floating camera or a handheld camera with no steady cam on it, so it's a very shaky picture. The constant zooming in and out was something new. It was designed, I believe, to make us all nauseous. And Madison explained here that Tara had been brought back to TNA simply to protect the princess, that being herself. I remember when Tara returned like 3 months ago under the motorcycle helmet, and then they asked, "Why is she back?" Did he ever answer that question, or was this the first time they mentioned it?
I guess she was just allowed back.
I believe so.
Tara and Mickey Falls Count Anywhere. I gave it 3 stars. Not as good as their match last month. The deal was they really beat the hell out of each other all over the building, and per usual TNA women's standards, this was 10 stars. But, we don't always grade on a curve here. So they brawled all over the place. My only issue with it was there was no real story to the match. They beat each other up in the ring. They beat each other up in ringside. They beat each other up in the crowd. They beat each other up backstage.
Boy, you're really selling this as a 3-star classic.
It was a great moment where they were brawling in the backstage area, and Taz, of all people, says, "Where are they?" And I thought, you're in the Impact Zone. You do every show here. Taz doesn't know the lay of the building. They're selling concessions here, for Christ's sake. Of course Taz knows where they're at. So they brawled all over. They beat each other up. They ended up in the bathroom. They had some plants running for their lives for some a poor attempt at comedy at the end of a serious match. And then from one of the stalls, outran Madison Rayne, waffled Mickey with the title, and Tara got the pin. I could not for the life of me figure out if this was a swerve, because I could not remember what the relationship was between Madison and Tara, so I have absolutely no idea.
It is a quandary.
I give it 3 stars because of how hard they worked, but looking back at the match, I mean, it really wasn't a 3-star match. I probably was overrated.
I believe you did. They did work hard. They did beat the heck out of each other. They did do some scary stuff. Most notably, Tara hooked Mickey for a pile driver on cement, and then it turned into a backdrop on cement. It was actually even scarier than it sounds, because it resulted in Tara being upside down over the cement for far too long. The other highlight was the commentary. We already talked about Taz not knowing where the contestant stand was. Mike Tenay at about that same time, and this is another match, by the way, that was, due to its nature, shot by one guy with a camera running around, and at one point here, Mike Tenay declared that he was seasick. Then we had Mickey in this hardcore Falls Count Anywhere match. She spanked Tara and then squirted her with water. Junior Horseman was over. He's had a great idea since they're in Orlando. They should have gone to Universal Studios, gone to the Jaws ride, and have the shark eat one of them. I thought it was brilliant.
Sure, why not?
Then they fought in the men's room. The crowd cheered, and Taz noted very casually, men's room gets a big pop.
Yeah.
So, yes, there were dudes in there running around, not washing their hands, as Taz also noted. Tara got a swirly, but it was not even on camera. Then, I don't know where the ref went, but the referee left. And then behind the ref's back, in a Falls Count Anywhere match, Madison sprayed Mickey with a fire extinguisher. Tara made the cover, then had to call the ref over. And several seconds later, he returned to count the pin. And then, for the last great comment on this match, Taz noted, this meant Madison had been hiding in the men's room for Christ knows how long.
Yep. She just chose a random bathroom and went in there and just waited and hoped that they eventually got there.
This is the one where the women eventually brawl into.
She couldn't have gone into a women's bathroom. Had to be a men's bathroom. His plan is I call shenanigans on this plan. If this were the 60s, I'd have just figured out wrestling was fake. Cookie and Robbie E. did a promo backstage, and this was where I decided, TNA should just stop doing
television?
They should stop doing interviews backstage, because the wrestling's always usually good if they let the guys work and such, but when TNA does interviews backstage, there's like one of 3 things that happens. Number 1, the guys don't know how to cut promos, and so the interviews are bad. Number 2, you get a guy like Ric Flair, who actually is a great promo, or Mick Foley, and they go into business for themselves, where like Mick Foley starts talking about writers, and Flair starts talking about firing people that don't actually end up getting fired. Or you've got C, which is Christy is interviewing Lethal and Robbie E. Robbie E. and Cookie. And Cookie starts calling Christy a bitch, which of course they do on every show. What a shocker. And so Christy blows her off and says, interview's over.
Yes.
Way to make your stars look like complete fools. So this was a fail.
I will just summarize that by reading my notes verbatim here. Christy interviews Shore. That accomplished less than nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jay Lethal and Robbie E. Cookie in the shark cage. Cookie refused to get into the cage. I actually thought she was just going to walk away and not get in the cage, and they'd end a stipulation that didn't even need to be there in the first place. But that's not what happened. Although they did screw something else up later. They had Shark Boy. Seriously. Shark Boy came out and put her in the cage. So they put her in the cage, they raised her up, she looked terrified. I know I was.
This company a half hour ago could not get their television show on the air properly.
Listen, a show that can't even go on the air properly, you're going to put me in a cage and suspend me above the ring? Fuck that. But Cookie got in there, so more power to her. So they had a match. It was good in the ring. And then, of course, they had to kill the stipulation. You see, she's in the box, and she throws down a chain to Robbie E. Robbie's going to use it. Earl Hebner grabs it, throws it outside. As he's distracted, Cookie throws down hairspray. But Jay grabbed it from Robbie, sprayed him in the eyes. Hebner turns around, sees it, and calls for the DQ. So they had a shark cage stipulation for no fucking good reason. She interfered one time! And they decided that to prevent this interference, they need to hang her above the ring, at which point she interfered anyway. So yeah. Again, Happens all the time. A good match ruined by a shitty stipulation.
A DQ finish here in the shark cage match.
Anyway, this was not one of the good matches on the show. I did give him 2.5 stars in the ring, but...
I probably underrated this. I went 1.5 stars because I was so angry about the finish. But yes, it was... Not only did they have interference with the stipulation designed to prevent interference, but also the babyface came off looking like a moron. Mm-hmm. So, not a lot good done here.
Cookie was celebrating with the belt. Shark Boy came out, chewed her out. She slapped him. He gave her a stunner. Presumably, this leads to Robbie E versus Shark Boy, although never say presumably when talking about TNA.
I also like that Shark Boy is absent for what seems like a year from this program. But then, because they have a shark cage match, they brought him back.
Yeah. So we had Christy interviewing Tommy Dreamer, who managed to dress even worse than Chael Sonnen's lawyer. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt and a TNA trucker hat. Dressed for success here in TNA.
Most truckers look nicer than this.
So, he was doing the promo for the RVD versus Rhino match. Interviewed a different person. So, he said the match was, he wished them luck. He explained that 10 years ago, he said, Rhino broke RVD's leg, and they were best friends ever since.
That is why they are friends. I gave up on this promo at that point after that. Yeah. Anything else he said, I don't know. That was too stupid to comprehend. Also, this had the same spastic cameraman from the earlier promo to make you ill.
This match, RVD and Rhino, I thought was great. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was the first blood match, and I will admit I was getting angry during this match, and I had no reason to. Because, again, I was making presumptions about TNA, and this time I was wrong. I was wrong, everyone. I was watching these guys have a great match, and I thought, it really sucks that they're having this great match and it's not going to have a finish. It's going to end with some screw job involving a guy bleeding. Because, of course, why else do you book a first blood match except it's got to have a screw job? I was wrong. They had a great match, just a great match, and RVD finally put him down in the corner and put a trash can in front of his face, did the coast-to-coast drop kick. It crashed into Rhino's skull, busting him open. He was bleeding. He was unconscious. They called for the bell. Rhino is not under contract, believe it or not, and so this might be his last match for the time being until he signs a new one. So they destroyed him and sent him out a bloody mess. This was awesome.
That finish did add a full star to the match. It was... I don't know if I've ever seen a first blood match where a finish this clean.
Yeah.
He put a weapon in front of his face, kicked it into him. It looked like it sucked. He came up bleeding a lot. The end. Mm-hmm. I appreciate not being insulted. There was also a point here where Taz was talking about what a great athlete Rob was, his flexibility. He said he has great flexibility in, this is a quote, in the legs, the spine, the buttocks.
Yes.
Rob Van Dam's flexible buttocks, everybody.
He's flexible in the buttocks.
In the buttocks. That's my lasting memory of this match, I'm afraid.
Well, that tells us something now, doesn't it?
I guess it does.
Then we had a promo to set up the AJ Douglas-Williams match, and Kazarian did it.
They did do this throughout the entire show.
Are the competitors too busy tonight?
Or have they been too busy?
They should have explained the competitors are busy going over their matches tonight, everybody, so we're going to have a third man do the promos for them.
See, the first one, it was Madison talking about the match, and then at the end, she interfered. So at that point, I figured they were just going to interview the people who were interfering. So it was yet something else they do to get me expecting swerve. But then they don't swerve, and that's a swerve.
AJ and Doug Williams, I gave this match 4 stars.
That match ruled.
I loved this match with every ounce of my being. It was so awesome. They did all of their spots. It didn't go on too long. Everything made sense. It was a perfect match. And at the end, they ended up outside. AJ went for a dive. Douglas avoided it. He grabbed him from behind, ran him into the guardrail, hit a Chaos Theory suplex on the floor. AJ was dead. Douglas threw him into the ring, set up for the Styles Clash. I was thinking, how do you get out of this, AJ? You just took a Chaos Theory suplex on the floor. This is going to be phony if you do something here. Well, he didn't.
No.
He was thrown into the ring. Douglas hit him with his own move and pinned him clean. I shed a tear.
There's never been a more decisive winner in TNA. Yes, I like you, because the other thing about this is, this was the best match on the show anyway, but it could have been better. They could have gone out there and really tried to steal everything. They could have done every near fall on earth. They didn't. the match was... It was not going too long. It felt like they could have gone another 10 minutes easy, and they did not do a ton of near falls. So yes, I expected AJ to kick out of the Styles Clash, and they would kick out of a bunch more moves. But no. He took a Chaos Theory on the floor. He took his own Styles Clash in the ring. He did not kill his own finisher. He lay down and was pinned. Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Story of this pay-per-view is TNA proved me wrong. And all I can hope is they continue to do that in the future. Although, the last hour of this show...
They also proved you right.
They proved me right, yeah. We had Motor City Machine Guns and Generation Me TLC match. 3 3/4 stars. I didn't feel this hit the 4-star mark. It was a stunt show. They did 8 billion spots. A lot of them were, quite frankly, really dumb. Thankfully, nobody was hurt at all in this match, believe it or not.
Amazing in hindsight.
They built up to this spot at the end where they had all these ladders in the ring, and they put a table on it, like a tabletop. And Sabin and Max Buck went up there, and they were standing on top of this very rickety structure, and they had a chair battle. And I'm sure it was a great idea on paper, but the structure was so rickety that they were swinging these chairs in very slow motion. And it looked, I don't know, it was not much of a chair battle. And Sabin won. Max fell off the structure, threw a table in the ring. Sabin grabbed the belts and won. Thankfully, the whole thing did not tip over and kill somebody. And very creative idea. Didn't quite work in execution. A lot of amazing spots. If you're a man who loves spot fests, this was the match for you.
If you just like seeing human bodies fly at each other in unique and innovative ways, have I got a match for you? This one here. My favorite, and it's actually one of the simpler ones, Shelley had one of the Bucks outside, and he lifted it on the floor, and he lifted him in either a power bomb or a victory roll position on his shoulders. And then Sabin from inside the ring hits the ropes for a Silver King dive into a body press on the floor. I don't recommend trying this at home. I don't recommend trying this in matches, actually. But they did it, and it worked, and it looked awesome. They did a bunch of other stuff. Most of it looked, if we're going to be brutally honest, most of it looked phony and planned and like they were following a script. Such as when they did some very complicated double facebuster thing with a chair where Shelley tossed a chair at the Buck, and the Buck held it in front of him, and he shouted, "Way to hold it!"
Way to hold a chair!
Or he shouted, I should say.
Yeah.
There was also a point where they were doing... Well, in one of the billions of spots, there was a point where literally one guy in the crowd was chanting TNA. That's bad. Then they did the finish, and the finish, it terrified me. This was a very scary thing they were doing if you saw this, because it was not very stable, the stable on top of the ladders, and the payoff was a spot that was just so goofy. And I was a little angry that they did something so dangerous for such little reward. But yeah, the match, I went 3.5 stars, but it was really, really fun. And if you like just guys doing crazy stuff, then you probably like it even more than we did.
Now, I know we have some listeners that have some issues with listening comprehension, so I want to make this very, very clear. Up to this point, this show was awesome. There were a lot of great matches on this show. There was a 4-star match, a 3 3/4 star match, a 3.5 star match, and more. Up to this point, this was one of the best pay-per-views of the year. Now,
I will tell you,
if you're a huge fan of TNA and you don't like me saying bad things about it, now's the time to skip forward about 10 minutes. Because we're going to talk about the last hour, when the show fell off a cliff.
I will tell you the exact moment this show began to suck. After the TLC match, they aired a video package there's another video package a moment later, but this was a video package for the Pope and Abyss feud. As you may recall, they were having a casket match on the show. The point of this video package was to explain how they went from Pope wrestling Abyss and having his congregation and his brother turn on him and betray him, to Pope and Abyss wrestling in a casket match a month later. Suffice to say, this video failed to make any kind of sense.
Yes. Well, there's no way to make sense of it. So we had Abyss and Pope in a casket match. And, of course, very early on, Pope takes a backdrop over the top and hits his lower back on the edge of the casket. You guys think I'm joking?
No.
Swear to God. They recreated the spot that legit broke Shawn Michaels' back and put him out of the business for 4 years.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Pope was not killed. So Vinny went to the bathroom, and quite frankly, he took a piss. And when he returned, Pope was making a comeback and not selling his back at all. That is how long it took for him to stop selling his back.
Yep.
Thankfully,
When we say not selling his back, he was grabbing his 350-pound opponent and hoisting him into the air.
well, this was a little later. He was doing drop kicks and that sort of thing. But Abyss went back to work on him, and he did begin to sell for a while, and then he wasn't selling, and then he was again. And they kept teasing that. Well, first off, Taz didn't understand the rules. And the rules were that you had to put a dude in the casket and shut the lid. So Taz was confused, and it had to be explained what was going on. So they get put in the box, and they're teasing shutting the lid. And, of course, nobody really cares. Because who the fuck cares who wins a casket match between Abyss and the Pope with nothing on the line?
I don't know.
So they're trying to create drama. Nobody cares.
They also did a horrendous job of teasing these quote-unquote near falls. There was a point where Abyss had Pope in the box, and he was trying to close the lid, and Pope blocked this by essentially doing a bench press. Mm-hmm. He put his hands up on the lid, and he pushed upwards. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Abyss is on the apron with one hand on the box trying to close it. You weigh 350 pounds.
Yeah.
Jump on top of the box.
It gets better.
It will close.
Pope makes a comeback and starts lifting Abyss. With his bad back, he decides in his comeback he's going to start lifting the man, doing atomic drops and the like. And even Taz is like, not sure if that's the best idea with a bad back, lifting such a huge man. Yeah, no shit. So they keep doing their spots, and then they do the spot. Would you like to explain the spot, Vinny, or should I?
I will do my best. So Pope makes his big comeback, runs wild, and then he throws Abyss into the box. Now, everyone else, every other time they tried this, they merely stood on the apron and tried to slam the box from there. Pope takes it upon himself to climb down to the floor, stand at one end of the box, and try to close the lid. This takes a long time. He climbs down from the apron, strolls over to the end, raises his hands, puts them on the lid, and tries to shut it. And then there is a thud. The thud was Abyss's fist striking the end of the box. There were a few of these, and then finally there was a crack. The crack was Abyss's hand punching through the end of the casket. His hand punched through the casket. He reached out. He grabbed Pope apparently by the penis.
Yeah.
And pulled him into the box.
Yeah.
And Pope sold this, which sure, that would hurt.
Yes. But never had anyone do it to me.
I don't want to try it. I'm willing to suppose this hurts.
So they do this spot, and then like a couple of minutes later, they're brawling on the apron, and Abyss kicks him in the nuts, and then chokeslams him into the casket for the win. And I thought, so we had two turning points in this match involving the dude's cock. Is this building some sort of perverse stipulation match that I don't want to know about?
So let's not go there. Let's not even raise the question.
So anyway, this match sucked. Star. I gave it 1 star.
And I went 3/4 star. Yes, and also, by the way, if Abyss can punch through caskets, he can sure as hell beat the Pope faster than this.
Then we had
a horrendous skit.
Well, no, first off we had... I guess we did have that, yeah. So they had the ref backstage giving Joe and Jeff the rules like it was a stare-down in an MMA match, and Joe was actually participating in this nonsense, which made him look like a complete clown. So then Gunner and Murphy ran in and attacked Joe, and I'll just tell you what they were supposed to have done. They hit his ankle with a nightstick. What they really did was start
waving the nightstick back and forth over his foot.
Kind of like if you had something you needed to shake before you opened it. That's what they were doing with this nightstick near Joe's ankle. This was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Then Jeff Hardy, a video started to play and then ended abruptly, to which TNA had to apologize again. We played the wrong video. Thanks, Mike.
And then the right video played, hyping up Joe and Jarrett. So Joe had just had his ankle worked over. He limped down to the ring defiantly. That's great. They began doing this match, and Joe rather quickly, with his bad leg, said, hey, I know. I'll go to my back and try to pull guard. He went to his back. He dared Jeff to enter his guard. Jeff did so repeatedly, and every time Jeff would quickly slap on a submission, and Jeff would have to get the ropes. Great. This all makes sense. And then Joe began running around the ring, doing sentons and power slams and whatnot. He was fine.
Yeah, the finish was... I mean, Joe put him in a bunch of holds, And so many holds, he knew he was losing.
Yes.
And then he ended up outside and put on the rear naked, but you can't tap outside the ring, you see.
So it's a legitimate submission here.
So then he tapped in the ring, but his feet were in the rope, so that didn't count either, they said. So finally, Gunner and Murphy ran down. They distracted the ref. Jeff put him in the ankle lock after, because of course his ankle was injured, and then Joe tapped. They ruined this feud. It was so great when it started, and then it just collapsed. I mean, granted, Joe has not re-signed, but realistically he's probably going to. But, I mean, this is such an easy match. If you're going to do this finish, then Joe has to just beat the shit out of the guy for like 5 minutes, hit him with every move, or not even every move, put him in submission after submission, and Jeff gets the ropes every single time, and punch him, and the whole 9 yards, and finally this finish happens. You don't do a back-and-forth match. I just don't understand how you cannot do this right. This one is not fucking difficult. So anyway, match was pretty lame, and finish sucked, and there you go.
I went 1 star.
If you want to. All right. Whatever. Christie interviewed Anderson, and Morgan won in no DQ, and I don't know if Anderson forgot his line, but he did not answer. He just said he was going to call it right down the middle like an asshole. Ha-ha! Comedy. Hardy and Matt Morgan for the title. This was TNA at its worst. First off, the match was no good. Very pedestrian. They had Jeff hit a bunch of twists of face, but Matt kicked out of all of them. Anderson's being a fair ref. And then every time he kicked out of the twist of fate, there was less and less of a reaction to it. Then Morgan tried a kick, but hurt his knee doing it because you see he's clumsy. He got the heat on himself because he's an oaf.
Got the heat on himself.
Yeah,
he did.
So then Jeff did more moves and tried to leave, but Anderson wouldn't let him. Commanded Jeff get back in the ring. Anderson counted when Morgan rolled him up. Fair count. But then when Jeff had a pin, he wouldn't count. So now he was a biased ref. And then Jeff hit Morgan with a chair to the leg. No DQ match. Anderson took a bump. I so am... I've lost it.
There's a lot more, everyone.
Ref took a bump.
I'll take over for you here.
All right.
So, yes, the special referee there to enforce justice and make sure that the pinfall is countered takes a bump. He is bumped to the floor. Then Morgan has the pin, but, of course, there was no ref. So who should appear at the top of the ramp but Eric Bischoff and Jackson James? Mm-hmm. Eric Bischoff storms down to ringside. He grabs Anderson and throws him into the steel post.
And by the way, when we say he threw him into the steel post, Eric Bischoff tossed him into the post with the sort of effort he would use to toss a softball at an infant. You have never seen a man put so little effort and in such a nonchalant fashion throw a man toward a post and his opponent fly at the post with such speed.
Yes.
Anderson looked like the biggest moron here.
If you've seen any of the old the Christopher Reeve Superman films, when Superman will like casually toss a car aside, it looked like that. Bischoff put his hands on Anderson, sort of gave him a little shove, and Anderson went flying several yards into the post.
At full speed.
At full speed.
Yeah.
So then Bischoff turned around, he threw Jackson James into the ring, where Matt Morgan was making a cover. So Bischoff grabbed him and pulled him back out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then he put him back in, I guess, and Jeff hit, I believe, his 5th twist of hate. This one was finally the pin. Jeff Hardy hit at least 5 twists of hate in this match. Not one of them was taken correctly.
Yeah. Quite astounding, actually.
The final sentence of my notes reads, Shat a shitty pay-per-view main.
Shat a shitty pay-per-view.
I believe I meant to type what, but somehow this still fits. So, yes, you had Jeff Hardy
Shat a shitty pay-per-view main.
Yes.
That should be on a T-shirt.
It sounds sort of almost like a haiku. You have Jeff Hardy, the heel, Matt Morgan, the babyface, and Mr. Anderson.
The Lord, the 7-foot babyface.
Sorry?
He's 7 feet tall.
7-foot babyface. And you have Mr. Anderson, who I guess is the out-for-himself tweener who everyone likes. The result of this was Matt Morgan was, by a wide degree, the least liked guy in the match. There were some actual boos for Matt Morgan, or for Hardy, including Hardy sucks chants in the beginning. But then there were also dueling chants later, and then he chanted, "We are assholes." So in an effort, I guess, to ensure that Jeff Hardy is cheered until the end of time, yes, the referee begins to screw with him. And now Jeff is fighting alone against two men.
Overcame all the odds
He
here
did.
tonight. Yeah. So yeah, this sucked, everybody. Again,
Horrendous.
everyone, I recommend you buy this pay-per-view, watch 2 hours, and then shut it off. Just pretend it's a Strikeforce show. It ends an hour early. You'll be fine. To the back! Impact was not so bad. It was fine.
There was a really, really stupid thing, but it was literally like the second sentence of the show.
No, there was actually something that was so stupid that I actually want to talk about it right now. I want to get it out of the way. This was so fucking dumb that, again, I've said this a million times. I don't know why I'm ever in awe of anything that TNA does. You know what I mean? It's almost been,
47 years.
It's almost been 9 years they've been in business. And by the way, there was a Bubba Ray, speaking of the thing that pissed me off, there was a Bubba Ray interview the other day where he said something like, "You know, I just love coming out and it's like ECW. I like helping these young companies get off the ground." Young company? This company has been around longer than the length of the Monday Night Wars. This company's been around almost 9 years. 9 years, everyone. How many of you know somebody that has like a 9-year-old son or daughter?
I am related to several.
Okay, 9 years old.
You know what, 9-year-old, at that point, they're people.
Yeah, they're pretty big now, right?
You can have a conversation with them in normal tones.
Well, the smart ones, you can. They're smarter than you.
Sure.
9 years old, they're pretty big by that point. That's how old TNA is, everybody. A young company, 9 years of failure. Anyway, the segment that just blew my mind. So, Bubba Ray is in the back, and he explains that for 15 years, he has been proving that he was the star of the show in Team 3D.
This was stupid.
He said anybody could have been Devon. And tonight, he was going to prove that with a fake Devon. So, Bubba and a fake Devon, a black fella that was doing a bunch of Devon mannerisms, they come out and they face ink. And you'll never guess what happens, everybody. What happens is, the fake Devon gets pinned.
Well,
listen to me. How fucking stupid do you have to be to fuck this up? There is no heat in Bubba claiming that anybody could have been Devon and then being proven wrong.
yes.
The heat, you dumb fucks, is in Bubba saying that anybody could play the role of Devon and then be proven right. So you have Bubba get a black fella playing the role of Devon. He comes out. You get two skinny, pale, uncoordinated, complete, untalented jobbers. And you have Bubba and the fake Devon beat them. And then Bubba says, "See? I was right. Anybody could have been Devon." And then you have the people, theoretically, because it's TNA, they'd fuck this up somehow. But the people say, "God damn it, I can't wait to see Devon kick this guy's ass. I can't wait to see Devon beat this guy from pillar to post." This fucking guy comes out here and tries to claim that anybody could have been Devon, and these are the guys that he beats to prove it. Yes. What an asshole! Oh no, not in TNA. No. Bubba comes out and says anyone can be Devon, and then he's proven wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
that whole
how do you
segment
fuck this up?
was a disaster from the start. because they booked themselves into a corner. Because the key thing to what you said, the key thing really is you get two small, pale, uncoordinated, untrained men. Team 3D, or excuse me, TNA instead put them in there against Inc.
Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing. So they have the guy who is the fake Devon. We were all supposed to believe this guy is an incompetent pro wrestler. That's the story. He is a goof that Bubba found to be anyone who can fill Devon's place. So this goof gets in the ring, and he wrestles Inc., and he is winning on them. He's beating them up. Then they cut him off, and he began to kick out of their moves. And they did finally beat him. They eked out a narrow win over the fake Devon. But yes, this should have been Bubba and Devon against two guys we've never heard of before. They should have killed him in 3 minutes. Devon still sort of fucked stuff up, and Bubba sort of saved it for him, because then it just makes Bubba look like a bigger asshole.
I just don't understand why it's so hard to do pro wrestling. Like, why is it so hard to tell a logical story that makes sense? You know what I mean?
Well, because he
like it took him 1 week. It took them 1 week to fuck up Devon and Bubba. Last week, I so badly wanted to see that match. Then it turns out it's not even on the pay-per-view. And now they've got 4 more weeks to write things for Bubba and Devon. And after 1 week, they fuck the entire thing up. Because they can't do the simplest fucking thing right. This is so goddamn easy. Like, the Jeff Jarrett thing is already, I'm long since past that. I mean, they fucked that up a long time ago. But it's so infuriating that, like, they have something good for 1 week, and then they have to just keep going. And they bury it 8 feet under the earth. Why the fuck would I care about Devon wrestling Bubba now? Bubba went out there, talked some shit, and he was proven wrong.
He ended up looking like a fool.
The fuck am I paying for then?
He's already been embarrassed and humiliated.
Why do I need to see someone beat up this dumbass now?
He has gotten his comeuppance already.
You gotta... Jesus, this is so fucking easy. And they're so idiotic. So goddamn stupid. That pissed me off. All right, let's talk about the rest of this stupid show.
That was stupid.
The hell was that?
That is, this computer, when I scroll to the top of the page, it goes beep.
Quit making the computer flip out like that.
My old computer didn't do that.
Well, it's got a new one now.
It's not new. It may be newer. It's yours and not mine. Anyway, what I thought was stupid was the show opened with Eric Bischoff and Immortal having a meeting backstage.
He didn't even care about this.
See, Eric explained that they were in legal limbo because of the injunction Dixie got from the judge and wherever. Hogan was temporarily banned from the company. He explained they were going to be in court. They needed to win the court case, and the best way to do that was to win their wrestling championships in this company.
I mean, that's why they gave Jeff the world title. He's in court.
I see. Yeah. That...
See, I didn't care because they
always
how many
say this.
times, exactly, how many times they did a stupid storyline where
the belts have power.
That's right. If we win the championships, we're going to have power in this company.
He scolded AJ here because AJ lost his belt at the pay-per-view, and because of this he said, we have all lost leverage.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of this means.
It annoyed the fuck out of me.
So then Rhino shows up and wants his contract that Eric promised him, and Eric just wrote no on a piece of paper. Rhino got mad, and then they all beat him up. So, we go from a backstage meeting with Eric Bischoff and Immortal to an in-ring meeting with Eric Bischoff and Immortal. Mm-hmm. They all walked down to the ring. It was literally the exact same crew that was in the back. Eric brought out Jeff, said Jeff was the great champion, but he needed worthy challengers, and that's why he called out Matt Morgan. That's comedy. Morgan came out with a pipe, and perhaps speaking of pipe, either Gunner or Murphy was standing behind Eric, and he was on some intense stimulants. This man was wired. So Bischoff kissed Morgan's ass for a while, said he did great in the title match. The only reason he did not win was because of the incompetent ref. It was all Mr. Anderson's fault. So he said he was going to book Morgan versus Anderson, with the winner getting a shot at Jeff Hardy. Morgan was upset. I love the idea that he said you deserve a third try. Continue to fail, and we'll keep giving you tries. We don't want to elevate anyone else into this spot. So, yes, Morgan said Anderson was still not clear to wrestle. Bischoff said, well, if he's not clear to wrestle, if he's still too hurt, then he's useless to me, and he will be fired. I don't know what they do with the tapings, but it seems like they're leading to a three-way. Maybe I'm wrong. But if that's the case, maybe I can rant about that after it takes place, because most of me believes they can't possibly be that stupid. But then I realized TNA is the most likely.
Actually, given the promo about an hour into the show, nothing would surprise me.
It's just astounding that, so Anderson really got hurt, so you needed something to tide everything over until he came back. And so you chose Matt Morgan, who had a bad match with no heat on a show that nobody cared about. And so your first course of action after this is to book the match again, a second time. And then, when Anderson is finally ready to return, instead of just getting rid of Morgan, now you've got to keep Morgan in the fucking storyline with Anderson. What?
He must be in the match too.
Yeah. I don't know.
Mike Snee explained to us that because of passport issues beyond her control, Hamada was, turfed, basically. But that was their excuse.
Yeah.
She had passport issues. Therefore, they're having a tournament to fill the women's tag team belts.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't just put them on the shelf.
No.
The belts had to be brought back.
Of course. They're very important, Vinny, because the girls need leverage as well.
I suppose. We had the Team 3D segment we talked about earlier. Everything about it sucked. We had Tara warming up for her concert backstage. She was singing badly. Generation Me told up and told her she was singing well. She made them take their shirts off. She spanked their ass. Came back from commercial. It was Tara's concert. She was badly lip-syncing to her theme song. All three of them were badly dancing.
Thing with this was, it was good for 10 seconds.
But it went for a minute.
It had to go 10 times that long.
Yes. So,
Is the concept of less is more really that hard to comprehend?
It's like we say...
it's not like this is a wrestling thing. This is a life thing.
Well, I was going to say, we say the same thing to people who make drops for the show. You make your joke, you have it be funny, and then you end.
Yeah. What is this is funny, so we're gonna keep showing it. Because it'll be funnier, I guess they think. It's not how it works, everybody. Less is more. This whole show, if you took out half the shit on this show, it'd be twice as good. They're too stupid to figure that out. They're like, the show sucks, so let's put more in. Bad idea!
So, they're singing and dancing. Mickey came out and attacked Tara. Eric Young came out and apparently took out both of the Generation Me kids by himself.
Mm-hmm.
He just started brawling and disappeared. The girls brawled for a long time. Mickey said it was time to put an end to all this.
Again, far longer than they needed to get the point across.
All their brawls go far too long. Mickey said it was time to put an end to this. She just challenged Tara to a cage match, and so help me God, I actually believed she was going to say next week. But no, it was tonight. Tara didn't say anything, but they played the music.
It's so like all those Ultimate Fighter shows where the coaches had a quick pull apart and everybody jumped in immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you're going to do George St. Pierre and Josh Koscheck. Okay, they have if something would have happened on the show, and one of them would have taken a swing at the other or just shoved the other or something like that, and everybody jumped in and pulled them apart, you'd be begging to see them fight. If on Ultimate Fighter, one of them shoved the other, and on the same show they ended up in the cage and went 3 rounds. I mean, you laugh, but apparently these fucking morons think that that's what would sell a pay-per-view.
Right. They're morons. So we got a backstage segment where Beer Money...
Oh, and by the way, going back to the whole the whole cage match deal here, another infuriating thing about this show, Mickey and Tara actually is a hot feud. So, they announced a cage match for this show.
Right.
Now, I'm not even going to argue that you should have held it off for the pay-per-view. I'm realistic.
I was arguing this should have held it off for a week.
That's what I'm saying. You couldn't hold this off for 1 week. And the thing that pissed me off even more about it is, all they do is talk about ratings. We want ratings. We got to get ratings. Okay, here's an easy fucking way to get ratings, you jackasses. You get a match like this, a hot feud, and you book a cage match, and you say, we're going to have it next week. You got to tune in next week to see this show. Tell your friends. No one fucking calls their friends when Impact is on. Get real. Say, next week we're doing this cage match. Put some fucking commercials on Spike or something like that. I don't know. Do your tweeting. But plug it for a week. No. They got to do that on this show. So then, thing that really made me mad was later in the show, the 10-year-olds, Generation Me, come out, and they're so angry at Eric Young.
Yes.
So they challenge Eric Young and his boyfriend Orlando to a match next week.
Yeah.
So, you've got Tara and Mickie James in a cage. And you've got Orlando Jordan and Eric Young versus Generation Me. Which one do you hold off for a week to promote?
Well, obviously, Orlando and Eric versus Generation Me.
Obviously.
That's clearly
because
the it's done.
that's the conclusion that they came to. This is the one that we need to hold off for a week.
Well, you will get Tara versus Mickie in an hour.
In an hour. Call your friends. I bet not a single fucking person in the world called their friends.
And even
no one
if they
really
did,
does that.
They were probably watching the show the next day on their DVRs.
So, we had...
Beer Money was backstage with Gunner and Murphy, and they explained to Gunner and Murphy they wanted them to rough up the machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
Let me repeat this. They wanted the machine guns roughed up, and the men they set out to do this chore was Gunner and Murphy.
Yeah, of course.
Apparently there were no Girl Scouts available, or blind men. They sent out the guys who always get beat up.
Actually, Gunner and Murphy looked all right in the match. Of course, they're in with the fucking Motor City machine guns. Hello?
You're missing my point, though. What's the trap?
I realize that.
They send out the guys who get beat up every week to do the beating.
That's heel stuff. I'm fine with that. That's cocky heels making a stupid decision. Great! The match itself was fine, and then we had something that was not fine, which was Gunner and Murphy are getting beaten up in 8 different areas of the ring, because of course no one could just stand in the middle of the ring while the other guy makes his comeback. And they're flip-flopping and flying, and then one of them hits Billy Sabin with a Billy Club for the DEQ.
Billy with a Sabin Club.
Because you see, they couldn't beat Gunner and Murphy.
No.
It was very important to protect Gunner and Murphy. So we had to have a disqualification. Gunner and Murphy were facing the World Tag Team Champions. And it was very important that they not lose. So we had to have a disqualification. And
the result of this disqualification
was the Guns beat the fuck out of them with the Billy Club.
Commandeered the Billy Club and laid waste to these men.
Yeah.
The Giants were weighed out by the welterweight tag team.
I wonder if, like Gunner and Murphy, I can't even blame them. Somebody had to have been like, well, man, we're beating up Gunner and Murphy. We shouldn't pin them, too.
I don't know.
I know that happened.
Don't ask me to explain this company.
I have been to enough indie shows to see dumb bullshit like this. The beautiful people were...
Velvet met Winter.
No, you're skipping the important thing here. Beautiful people were getting their makeup done.
That too.
Of course. Because they're not really hot, everyone. They're not really hot. They've got to put on makeup all the fucking time. So they're in there putting on their makeup like they do every week, seemingly for hours on end. And Winter shows up, and Velvet gets all lesbian jealous, wants to know what's up. And Angelina didn't even have much of an explanation, despite the fact that for 2 straight weeks, she has walked off with Winter to supposedly have long, in-depth heart-to-hearts. So, I don't know.
I don't know.
And by the way, going back to the very first segment of the show, Dixie serves these guys with this shit, and it takes 2 weeks for them to address it.
Yes. Well, you need time to process this kind of thing. You don't want to rush into a decision.
Of course, yeah.
All right, the next 2 segments were awful. Morgan and Anderson had a meeting backstage. Anderson wants to wrestle. Morgan thinks it's not safe. Anderson says he thinks his doctor will clear him. They shouted and screamed at each other like annoying bitches for a long time.
Again, it was not such a deal where you could just get your point across.
No.
Matt, I want to wrestle. Ken, I don't think that's a good idea. Okay, well, we agree to disagree. No, they had to bitch at each other for 15 minutes. And early on I liked this segment until it just kept going and going and going and going. It sucked.
They were, by the end of this, I could not wait for a 3-way so Jeff Hardy could beat them both.
Yeah.
This place. So that was the first cheese segment, and then we had a first-round semi-final tournament match.
Yeah.
That's how prestigious this tournament is, everyone. By signing up, you reach the semifinals. All right. There is no point to this women's tag team division, and I'm going to Exhibit A is that the first team in the tournament was Daphne and Sarita. And they're standing there, and Daphne's in her makeup and her wacky little hat, and Sarita is doing her Latin dance, and they are in no way a team. And it just screams, this does not need to happen. It was pointless. Then the beautiful people came out. Their entrance was much better, but it was immediately clear, like you mentioned, what you just said, they killed this act.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when they used to come out, and they were one of the hottest stars in the company?
Legit the hottest act on the show.
Yeah.
Not just physically, but they
were
were
the biggest ratings.
They were very, very... They were a big fucking deal.
No more.
No.
They're just two hot girls who bend over.
Yeah.
Then we had the match.
Because, you see, they're the beautiful people. Right?
Right.
Okay, what... I mean, you know... Does my wife walk around saying I'm the beautiful person? No, because it's a heel move. You know what I mean? The very name, the beautiful people, they're heels. That's why the act was so hot. They were bitchy heels that thought they were really hot. It was a great act. And then they broke them up and turned them babyface.
Yeah.
They broke them up and then put them back together as baby faces. I mean, I don't know.
So, all right, so Daphne and Sarita were a team. Sarita...
Why did I like this show? Or at least tolerate it?
Tolerated.
I don't even know.
Because we're over it to the point where we no longer get angry watching it. But
I'm very angry right now.
Well, we're angry now because we had to explain it. We had to think about it. We can just watch it and process it and not care. But because we have to come on the show and discuss it, that makes us angry. Okay, so Sarita cuts a promo on Velvet saying that she beat Velvet twice. Velvet can't beat her. Every time she gets in trouble, she runs and hides behind Angelina. And finally, Angelina jumped when the match was on. So you've got Sarita and Daphne. And this crowd, for literally no reason I can think of, did not care about Sarita at all and only wanted to see Daphne wrestle. I don't know if the building was stuffed with her immediate family.
Well, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of fans that think she's really hot.
I don't know if they're all racist. Well, she's not really Mexican. Maybe they hate Canadians, they hate Sarita. I don't know.
They had nothing to do with Sarita. They just loved Daphne.
Why?
Because I just explained it to you. There are a ton of fans that think Daphne is really fucking hot.
She's not, though.
Vinny, no one gives a fuck what you think. I'm telling you why.
It's a fact.
I'm telling you why. So, yes.
So, regardless, they had her in here. The fans were chanting tag in Daphne, even though she is not hot as Sarita and a much, much, much worse wrestler.
And I will say that when they actually tagged in Daphne, the fans regretted what they requested.
Watch what you ask for, everyone.
Yeah.
Be careful what you ask for.
They went quiet when they saw how bad it became.
You may be forced to watch Daphne wrestle. She tagged in. She did a spot where she hit a big and delayed body slam, like she's Ken Patera or something. And she could barely pull off this body slam. So the crowd, regardless, the crowd wants to see Daphne, but she is a heel. Beautiful people are baby faces. So when the baby faces made their comeback, the crowd booed them. Mm-hmm. Velvet made her own comeback. They got cut up again, and they made another hot tag.
Oh, my God. Let me cut to the chase here. Angelina pinned Daphne, and
everyone booed.
Beautiful people advanced. And then Sarita had cut a promo before the match on Velvet, saying that Velvet couldn't beat her. And then when the match was over, she cut another promo saying Velvet could not beat her and never would. Even though Velvet's team won the match, which... First off, number one, how could any fan possibly care? And number two, if it were me and Ryzik against you and the Ideal Reflection, and we beat you guys, and then you cut a promo saying, Bryan, you'll never beat me, I would howl with laughter.
You would say, I just did.
Instead, Velvet was all pissed. I don't know what's happening.
They did.
And speaking of...
Oh my God, I forgot about this. This is a terrible show.
This is so horrible.
We got a brief Abyss Pope video recap from the pay-per-view. They did not show the spot where Abyss punched through the casket and grabbed Pope's penis. Instead...
Oh, which, by the way, that was a legit casket. It was not gimmicked. He actually punched through a real piece of wood and just destroyed his fist. Seriously, Vince, you're not surprised.
What a fucking moron.
Don't even act like you're surprised.
I'm impressed more than anything, actually.
No, don't say that. He'll do something even dumber.
Oh, why not? Who cares? Let him light himself on fire. The casket was wheeled down to ringside. They opened it up. Then some gospel singers and dancers came out. They were singing "This Little Light of Mine." They were clapping and singing, having a good time. The crowd had no idea what to make of this.
They sang "This Little Light of Mine"?
They did.
Oh.
Yeah. Then they opened the casket, and we got a promo by Pope's voice. He was not there. We only heard his voice. I don't know what he said.
Essentially, he said that after he got beat at the pay-per-view, he was reborn as a new pope.
He said this is not the end of the Pope. It was a new beginning. He talked about single-parent families at Christmas time for a while. He told fans to reach deep. I thought he was going to encourage them to donate money by tossing it into the casket. That would have been awesome. No, instead he just said that he is still pimping, and then they all just went away.
So in other words, the loss didn't matter, everyone. Don't worry about it.
No.
He's fine. We had clips of everybody in the mystery trip to Abu Dhabi, which, like, everyone learned about a week before it happened. And the video package was a great 10 seconds.
Sure. That's true.
Yeah.
Mickie James got a promo backstage. I literally have no idea what she was saying because she was drowned out by Eric Bischoff's booming voice cutting another promo in the background.
Yeah.
It was a promo from the opening of the show.
Which, by the way, took place before the brawl.
Yes. It would have then, yes.
So, I mean, really? You fucking idiots. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do a tape promo where a girl is talking about something that happened after what you can hear talking about in the background?
I don't know.
And we had Doug Williams and Abyss.
This is not as good as Doug Williams versus AJ Styles.
No, it was a good match. My only problem with the match really was that and I blame Abyss for this. Abyss is supposed to be like this big fucking giant monster, and they had a professional wrestling battle here, which actually, if you forget everything I'm about to say, this was a really good TV match. But Abyss is like this big giant monster, and he sold like he was Doug Williams' size at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he got the heat, and then Doug made a comeback, and Abyss sold like he was AJ Styles.
Yes.
It's like, hell of a monster you are there,
all
buddy.
All his moves were based around running around and moving at fast speed.
Of course.
The only spot they did was Doug teased a Chaos Theory suplex, which was not going to happen, and everyone knew it. But yes, other than that one instant, they wrestled like they were the exact same size.
Yeah.
So Doug won with a schoolboy. Abyss hit an exposed turnbuckle, and then as Doug was going up the ramp, AJ jumped him, gave him a Styles Clash on top of the ramp. Fucking ow!
I actually,
dudes.
I strongly disagree in the sense that they managed to shoot this from literally the worst possible angle, where you could see that Doug Williams' face came nowhere near the ramp.
No, but AJ's knees did.
Well, sure, but the move is supposed to hurt Doug Williams. You couldn't have shot it from the other side where you could not see what happened to his face?
Your point is valid, and it's TNA's. The answer is no. We had the segment where Generation Me challenged Orlando and Eric for next week. Jarrett came out for an MMA challenge.
I got to talk about this.
Have at it.
I don't know if this happens. Maybe this happened here, or maybe it happens next week. I presume it happens next week. But they're doing the open challenge where Jarrett offers $100,000 to anybody who can get in the ring and tap him out. And so at one of the tapings, they had planted some muscular indie workers in the crowd as plants, 5 or 6 of them or something like that. And so when he issues the open challenge and these indie guys start coming over the rail, well, a bunch of fans, muscular, angry fans, drunk, also started going over the rail. And, of course, it's TNA. Nobody has any idea what the fuck's going on. So, like, security and the guys in the truck, no one had any idea who was a plant and who wasn't.
Okay.
You think I'm joking?
No, it
So, like, dozens, I don't know if it was dozens, but, like, a bunch of people were in the ring. And half of them were the plants, and half of them were not the plants. And nobody knew who was who. And they're all these just pissed off guys. And they actually had to send Eric Bischoff down to try to quell the situation. And apparently looks awesome. And I'll bet it does. But could have been a disaster right there for TNA. Because, of course, They're complete idiots. Now, this segment, I enjoyed this segment to a degree. There were things I really hated about it. First off, Jarrett issues his challenge. A couple of guys in the crowd offer to come in. He turns a few of them down. He finally finds a fella, Mike from Brooklyn. And Jarrett gets him in the ring, tells him this is no joke, slaps him around a bit, calls a ref in the ring, proceeds to deliver a bunch of knees and soccer kicks, and then puts him in a rear naked choke for the submission. Obviously, they're building this up for the Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett submission match type deal. To me, they've already given up on the original angle, which is that Jeff Jarrett is not really a shooter. He has to cheat and then put people in holds. Now, since Angle is coming back, I guess they want you to believe he really is a shooter. So apparently Jeff Jarrett has learned MMA in a month. Yeah, that's number one. And number two, this isn't really. I don't blame Jarrett. I don't even know who I really blame for this, but I blame TNA. Yesterday we had Kevin Sullivan on the show, which actually I thought was a really great interview. A lot of people said they thought it was a great interview. A couple of people, including one very notable person, who I probably shouldn't say this person's name. I'll let them talk about it if they want at some point, but they didn't like it. But regardless, so Kevin Sullivan's on, and we're talking about King Curtis Aikea and what a scary man he was. You know, on the last show, I was talking about Abdullah the Butcher when I did the interview with Abdullah, and how...
you were afraid he would hit you with a fork at any time.
Yeah, because he exuded danger, you know? You got to listen to this show with Sullivan. Sullivan did not listen to the Bryan and Vinny Show, I'm pretty sure.
I strongly suspect you're right.
Can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure. But he almost gave the exact same goddamn speech that I did. Like, almost word for word. Talking about how, back in the day, if Brody or the Sheik or Curtis Aikea went over the rail, people would fucking run for their lives. And it ain't like that no more. He gave almost the exact speech, even mentioned Abdullah. It was rather eerie the next day to hear Kevin Sullivan talking about this exact same thing that I was talking about. But we're talking about this and that and everything else, and Jeff Jarrett comes out, and he issues an open challenge to anybody who thinks they can get in the ring and tap him out. And maybe hundreds of people are begging to hit the ring and take a swing at this guy. You know what I mean? Like, these people weren't scared at all of Jeff Jarrett. These people heard Jeff Jarrett offering $100,000, and they were like, I could take this fucking dude's head off.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It really spoke to what wrestling is nowadays. And the reason that I blame TNA is because the same thing I talked about on the show yesterday, there's so much fucking bullshit on this show. They turn this show and all these guys into a joke. Like Abyss, for example. I mentioned this yesterday. Abyss goes into the crowd, and fans don't scatter. They laugh, they pat him on the back, they smile. You know what I mean? Why? Because Abyss ain't scary at all. Because a couple of months ago, we saw him dressed up as a fucking Hulkamaniac. He was Evad Sullivan. He was dressed in the red and yellow and acting like a complete clown. Now they want to make him a killer heel. Yeah, good luck with that. Everybody knows this is complete bullshit because they write a bullshit wrestling show.
And before that, he was Chris Parks on Dr. Stevie's couch.
Yeah. You were supposed to believe that his father was shot or whatever that bullshit gimmick was. It's all such bullshit. And so nobody believes any of these guys are tough. Nobody believes any of these guys are scary. Kurt Angle's the exception. Because Kurt Angle so desperately believes his character. You know what I mean? Like, I think people believe that if Kurt Angle got all mad and went over the rail, I really think people would get the fuck out of his way. But anybody else, no, they laugh and they smile, they pat him on the back, and they want to hit the ring and beat the shit out of him. So that just tells you everything you need to know when I saw this segment, and people were just begging to jump the rail to get at this guy.
We then had a Rob Van Dam video recap package. He was very calm about the fact that Abyss had tried to kill him, and that all his friends were turning on him, and he still had not received a title shot at the belt he never lost. None of this bothered him, really.
Of course not. He's very chill.
Then we had the main event, Tara versus Mickie James in a cage match. I'd heard this match was really good. I'm sure they really, really tried hard to make it good.
I would bet this is one of those matches that was a hell of a lot better live.
That's probably true. They really, really wanted it to be good. They tried, and in fact, they tried a couple of terrifying spots. Some of them went wrong, and thankfully no one died. Some of them went right, and still, thankfully, no one died. It was not a bad match.
They worked really hard. They did a spot where Tara is standing on the top rope, like all the way on the top rope, and Mickey is holding onto the top of the cage, and she jumps up and wraps her legs around Tara's head, and
it's a spot she does in the corner of every match.
Yeah, she was going to do a giant super fucking Hurricane Rana.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she got cold feet or what happened, but it turned into a very, 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 very sloppy powerbomb.
Right.
It looked like both girls were killed. Then Tara got thrown over the ropes into the cage and hurt her arm. And, of course, she kept working and couldn't really do anything. And finally, the very top, the very end, she got knocked off the top. Mickey went to the very top of the cage and did a Thez press off the top, got the pin. Hopefully did not blow out her knee. She was holding it afterwards, and she really jumped from a very tall height. Is that the proper term to use? She was very high up in the air.
She jumped from way up there.
And she landed on both feet and
both feet spread very wide apart.
Everybody,
not supposed to land.
Everyone, I'm begging you, if you're in TNA listening to this, or you know people in TNA, I'm just begging you, please don't hurt yourself for TNA. I don't want you to hurt yourself for WWE either, but don't hurt yourself for TNA. I promise you it's not worth it. I fucking promise you. In 10 years, you're going to look back and you got hurt in TNA and just go, why the fuck did I do that? So just be careful. But yeah, they tried really fucking hard. They had a pretty good match. I think their first match was still the best of all. But yeah, I will say nothing bad about them. I just I wish people wouldn't do such stupid things on an Impact show, especially Impact at 11:10. No one's watching Reaction. They never do.
That's true.
I mean, you may have got a 0.8 for jumping off the top of the cage and actually with the two girls, I'll bet this segment did like a 1-1. But still, a 1-1. That ain't worth blowing out your knee and doing permanent injury, and as the old saying goes, not being able to get down on your knees and play with your kids. So please stop doing that stuff. But very, very, very good effort, and it was a good way to close out the show. What had otherwise been a pretty fucking horrible show now that I look back.
We're so numb to this.
Yeah. To the back! Alright, Impact. Let me tell you how bad this fucking show was. This show was so fucking bad that go ahead and go to the Observer, go to Figure 4 Weekly, read some of the recent SmackDown reports, and how much I have hated those fucking shows. How passionately I have hated SmackDown. I was begging for Undertaker, actually, not Undertaker, I'm sorry. It's very late, everyone. I was begging for Kane and Paul Bearer and Edge to make a run-in on Impact and do a stupid skit. That's how fucking bad this show was. I was begging for anything. Part of the problem was, never watch Impact after WEC, which I guess you could never do again since there is no more WEC. But the final ever WEC was an awesome show in a number of ways. There were great fights. There was the number one heel in the business today, Dominic Cruz. I cannot even put into words the hatred I have for this man as a fighter and how badly... I'm trying to think of and I'm a cheap man. Would I give the first person to beat him $500? I strongly think I would pony up $500 to the first guy to knock this fucker into next week. This guy has got such intense heat with me. I can't even, I can talk about this on another show. Now is not the time. But there's number one heel in the business right there, Dominic Cruz. Number two, you had the best kick in the history of mixed martial arts. The main event of the show, Ben Henderson, Anthony Pettis, for the number one contendership for the 155-pound title in UFC. In the final minute of the final fucking round, Anthony Pettis decided he was going to run up the side of the cage and do a flying kick. I don't even know why I'm even trying to explain it here. Words cannot put this into they cannot do justice to this move. I received text after text after text. I was not watching live, but text after text after text of people freaking out about this kick. And I was like, is this being built up too big for me? And I was watching with Whitney, and we both saw the kick, and we both leaped high into the air and went, holy shit! And they played it again. You got to see this, everybody. Just look it up online. I'm sure it's going to be somewhere. There's probably a million animated GIFs. Anthony Pettis and Benson Henderson. If you get a chance, I don't even know if they'll replay this show since it's the final one. I presume they will. But watch the last ever WEC. It was so awesome. And that kick to finish off the main event of the last WEC ever was so fucking poetic. Like, I would say you can't script an ending this good. But the reality is, you can. Just nobody fucking knows how. Least of all the people that are writing Impact. The Barbed Wire Christmas Tree show was really bad. But at least it was so bad it was hilarious. There have been some really bad shows that have at least had some good wrestling on them. This was just a black hole of suck. A black hole of sadness, and you have no hope for wrestling when the show's over. When you watch this as a wrestling fan, again, I don't see how anybody could watch this and go, I really like this show, Brian. Something's wrong with you. You're biased. Maybe someone's going to email me and say that. In fact, I hope they do. If you're the guy who thought this was a great show, please email me and explain yourself. This I've got to hear. It opened up with acting. We had Anderson kicking shit all over the place backstage and swearing. And Matt Morgan walked up, and he was rubbing it in that Anderson said he'd be cleared this week, and clearly he was not. And Anderson said, "My word is my bond," and he stormed off. And I presume what he was saying here was that he was not cleared. But we don't know because they never make it clear.
You have no idea what happened.
So, moments after they have this meeting backstage and Anderson storms off, Morgan comes out to do a promo, and out comes Mr. Anderson. Because you see, they couldn't hammer out their shit in the back. The camera's there. They had to do a backstage segment and then come to the ring and have the same fucking argument. So, all I know is that, long story short, they're going to have a match tonight. They're teaming up. Morgan doesn't want Anderson to wrestle if he's hurt. And there might have been some other stuff. All I know is that...
I think you guys got more out of this than I did.
The verbiage that these fucking guys, particularly Morgan, were given to read was so convoluted and overly complicated. They couldn't just come out and make things simple. As much as I hate SmackDown, there's no mistaking what the issue is with Kane and Edge. You know what I mean? A 1-year-old could understand the problems these men have with each other. Not on Impact. On Impact, half the time they write this show, like the people watching have got IQs of 10. The other half of the time, they write it as if they've got IQs of 180. You can't just decide. And I shouldn't even say that because Vince Russo couldn't write anything for somebody with an IQ of 180. But anyway, they ranted back and forth and this and that. And Morgan's trying to say that none of the fans would want to see Anderson wrestle tonight if it would screw him up for 30 years, and how they promised Chris Nowinski that if they were hurt and asked to wrestle, they'd tell the promoters to fuck off. Anderson
he said F off.
F off, that's right. Anderson said he'd been doing that for 2 months, and Jeff Hardy came out and buried both guys and teased that maybe Morgan was still a part of Fortune, and that led to absolutely nothing, so I don't even know why they scripted it. And anyway...
That actually describes this entire segment.
Whole thing, desperately overwritten, it sucked.
It went forever, it was boring, it established nothing, it led to nothing, it was a wretched opening promo. Particularly, I thought, even more so than... It was Morgan and Anderson just talking. And again, sentence by sentence, I don't know what they were saying. And then when Hardy came out and they tried to exchange banter, terrible.
Yeah. Then we had something that...
Okay.
Listen, we make fun of this all the time, this idea of booking backwards. But Robbie E., they announced we're about to see a Cruiserweight Championship match. An X-title match. Robbie E. versus Jay Lethal. Now, for those of you that have been paying attention, which I'm sure is none of you, because seriously, who could? Robbie E. and Jay Lethal had a match, and Cookie interfered. once. She interfered one time. And because she interfered one time, they had no choice but to sign a match at the pay-per-view where Jay Lethal and Robbie E. wrestled, and Cookie was suspended above the ring in a shark cage to ensure that she did not interfere. Of course, she did interfere. She threw a gimmick from the cage to the ring, and Robbie E. used it to win. So, what did they do on Impact? The very next fucking Impact, or maybe it was a week later, I don't know, but the very next match these two had. What did they do after the shark cage attempt to stop interference did not work? Why, they had a straight wrestling match, and Robbie E. came out with Cookie, who then proceeded in the very first fucking spot to interfere.
Right.
So, she interferes in this regular wrestling match, and they send out Christy Hemme with handcuffs to handcuff herself to Cookie. First off, I was going to ask, why would Christy Hemme have handcuffs on her? But
I think a few reasons.
Seriously, that I can believe. Second off, so apparently she was planning to come out with handcuffs, but she was also planning to make this run-in wearing a short, cleavage-exposing dress and high heels. Not the best outfit to do a run-in in. So she handcuffs herself to Cookie, and Cookie tries to interfere. Christy stops it. Jay Lethal gets the win. Everybody cheers. And I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, if before the match started, you announced that the stipulations for this match, to make sure that Cookie could not interfere, she was being handcuffed to Christy Hemme. That's all you would have had to have done. All you would have to do is announce in advance that those are the stipulations, and you don't look like complete fucking morons. But no. They brought him out like it was a regular match, and the interfering manager was there. She was not banned from ringside. She was just there like she always is, and she proceeded to interfere. And then they have someone run out who just happened to have handcuffs. This is just, it's like, you can't just do what makes sense. You know what I mean? You have to make it stupid. It's like they go out of their way to see how they can do something and make it even dumber than what it could have been if you would have just thought for like 5 fucking seconds. I don't know.
Everything you just said is true. But the thing is, it would be bad even if it had been done well. But this was done poorly.
Well, there was the knee.
Here is exactly what happened. Jay Lethal made his entrance. Robbie E. and Cookie made their entrance. They wrestled for perhaps 30 seconds. Christy comes storming down the ramp. She handcuffs herself to Cookie. And then they went to a commercial. That pissed me off. He came back, wrestled for a while, wasn't terrible. And then, at a random point, Cookie decided it was time to interfere again. And so they're facing the ring. The camera cuts to them. As the camera cuts to them, it's like the cameraman is, when he gets the cut, he then points to them to say, go! And Cookie turns to Christy and gives her the fakest knee. Everyone tracked down a toddler and give them a phony knee. That's what Cookie did here.
This literally was the worst knee I've ever seen in the history of wrestling.
This was...
I don't care how much you like Impact. I don't care how much you think that WWE sucks. You cannot, with a straight face, tell me that this was not the worst knee in the history of wrestling, because if you say that, you're a liar.
I suspect if you went back and watched Glow, you would see every knee strike would look better than this. So here's Chrissy doubled over in pain with the worst knee ever. Cookie tries to mace Lethal, and then Chrissy just cuts her off anyway. And then Lethal won.
Yeah, this sucked.
And Lethal tried to celebrate with his new title. As he explained, this meant he was now a 6-time champion.
Mm-hmm.
Fail.
Then we had the segment. Doug Williams he ran into Magnus outside. I don't even care if they used to be feuding. I don't remember. I don't even care. The bigger fish to fry. He explained that Chelsea was gone for good. Yeah, they discovered she had no talent.
Took them a year.
Exactly, it took them a year. So they got rid of her, and then, of course, Magnus announces that Desmond will be back to work soon now that this football thing is out of his system. So in storyline, Desmond Wolf likes soccer more than he does wrestling with TNA.
Yes.
Of course. So, and who wouldn't, quite frankly. So then Doug went in his trailer, which is where they dress in TNA, apparently, a trailer, and AJ jumped him and beat him up. So they're brawling, and of course, it's not this deal where they brawl and it's quickly broken up. No, they got to fight for like 5 minutes. So they brawl, and they brawl through the trailer, and hey, there's Madison and Tara changing. Because you see, apparently, Madison Rayne, Tara, and Doug Williams all share a trailer together. So they brawl and brawl. The girls are shrieking. They're throwing shoes. They're screaming about designer purses. And yes, they found a way to have a segment with Doug Williams and AJ Styles that was goddamn horrible.
And interminable. They went on and on and on, and all we heard was AJ with dialogue such as, "Here's another wall." And he threw Doug into the wall, and the girls were screaming like banshees the entire time. It sucked. I cannot wait for it to end.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that suck, Orlando Jordan was there.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Young walked up. He had wacky new gear in the old TNA World Championship and 2 hot babes. He explained there were Hooters girls. And he also explained that he had found the belt in the garbage can.
Yep, they did it.
They couldn't even show us.
No.
They couldn't have a reason Eric Young was digging through garbage and then found a belt. No. He just said he found it in a garbage can.
I like how they threw the belt away a month ago, and apparently it was in a garbage can somewhere for a month. Don't they take out the trash here in TNA?
TNA janitor slacking.
I guess.
So, yes, Eric explained the Hooters girls were there. He explained their uniforms. This intrigued Orlando. He disappeared. Then Eric Young turned the corner, and there was Brian Kendrick surrounded by candles. And if you think I'm ever writing down anything Brian Kendrick says again, you're mistaken.
You're missing the key to this entire thing here that was so fucking dumb. The main event angle on this show is about how a guy got a head injury, and it's a big scandal whether he's going to wrestle or not.
Oh, yes.
And meanwhile, Eric Young suffered a head injury, which has caused him to be clinically retarded, apparently, in storyline. And it's comedy. On the same fucking show.
That is true.
How does this happen? I mean, a rhetorical question. Everyone knows the answer. They don't know what they're doing. All right, move on.
I don't want to. So it keeps getting worse.
On any other show, that would be by far the stupidest thing on this show. But, I mean, this show is so bad.
That was so much better than the segment that followed it with the same people.
Yeah.
So, Generation Me come out. They're facing Eric Young and Orlando Jordan. Eric comes out. He's got the women. He's got his belt. And then out comes Orlando, who is now wearing a Hooters girl uniform.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. During this show, I went upstairs and played with the cats. I did not care at all. And I was up there for about, I'd say a minute. And I came back down, and Orlando has one of Generation Me in a wacky submission, and the guy taps. To which Taz notes, and I quote, "That came out of nowhere."
Yeah.
So much for Generation Me. Jobbers now.
I'm just going to read my notes. Eric wants to do a battle royal. He dumps the ref, then the Bucks, then his own partner. Now they are doing a tag match. Now the Bucks are distracted by the hot girls, and this allows Eric to get the hot tag. Orlando wins clean with a standing Anaconda Vice thing.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
This is supposed to be funny. Yeah,
There was, and I put this in quotes, comedy in this match.
And Eric and Orlando are a comedy team, that's fine, but Generation Me, they were like having the great tag team match in the last show, and now in this match they are treated like geeks. They lose to geeks, and they have the heat and distracted themselves by flirting with girls because they apparently had never seen a hot woman before.
I love the idea that they named the two girls Tara and Lara.
Yes.
And they've already got a Tara, and they could not possibly even think of renaming the random blonde Hooter girl something other than the name of a girl that they have wrestling.
Okay.
Quality control there, everyone.
Now, last week they started the Divas, or Knockouts Tag Title Tournament, with the first match, which is also a semifinal. So this week's the other semifinal. Mickie James walks up to Eric Bischoff and is upset. Why is she upset? Because she does not know who her partner is. Yeah. In the semifinal match of the title tournament.
Yeah, of course.
Eric decided to book Mickie and a mystery partner without telling her in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
So then he took great joy in letting her know it would be Miss Tess Mocker And she was pissed off and walked away. Why is Eric screwing with Mickey?
Because he's a babyface. He's a heel.
That's it?
Oh, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So they had a match, and it's been...
Did they really?
No. It was Miss Tessmacher and Mickey against Tara and Madison Rayne, and Miss Tessmacher came out in tight black spandex shorts displaying her ass, which is the best ass of anyone in all of professional wrestling. And it only took them over a full year to figure this fact out. So they finally dress her to highlight her assets, and unfortunately, then she has to wrestle. She's horrible. I don't know if she was trained by Tara, but she does the same thing where she runs with her arms splayed out to the side like a bird trying to take off, and she can't do anything. She worked together with Madison, which... This is the kind of thing, like, if it had aired 12 years ago, it would have been, like, -5 stars and called one of the worst performances in wrestling history. But there's been so much horrible shit in the last 12 years that most people probably didn't even notice this was any worse than any other women's match. Horrible.
Well, it was. Okay.
I gotta go get some ice.
Start with the fact that the two teams involved were Tara and Madison Rayne versus Mickie James and Miss Tessmacher. Now...
I can't even walk.
Wow. Brian is letting me out of the room.
What happened?
Maybe he has foot cancer. Is that possible? So, Tara, last week in the cage match with Mickie, tore her elbow ligament. So that meant she spent the entire match here on the apron. So you're already handicapping yourself by putting the best worker on that team in the apron. Then you have Madison has to be in the ring, and so rather than have her wrestle Mickie, they had her wrestle Brooke for a long-ass time. And it was horrible. It was bad. And yes, Brooke can't do anything. Madison is horrible. They finally tagged Mickie in. She ran wild for a bit. And then, for reasons I cannot fathom, she ran over to the heel corner. Tara was minding her own business. She turned her back to the ring. She tried to hide. She was wearing this big, giant elbow brace because she was wrestling with a torn elbow ligament. She threw blindly the giant elbow brace behind her. It happened to catch Mickie in the head. Tara was surprised by this. Mickie took a giant bump, and then Madison Rayne pinned her. So there you go, everyone. Mickie James' first loss in TNA came in a horrible tag match when she was hit by accident by the elbow brace of Tara. This is the show from hell. Speaking of the show from hell, Kazarian was walking around backstage, cutting a promo about whatever, when he bumped into Rob Terry. He made fun of him for a bit, but also at the same time tried to recruit him, saying he could join them in Immortal or Fortune or whichever. And Terry basically said no, and he left. Then we had something with the Pope. Last week, you remember, Pope was wheeled down to the ring in a casket, a casket was wheeled down to the ring, and they opened it and Pope was not inside. And we heard Pope's disembodied voice cutting a promo like he was the great and powerful Oz. This week, he is just hanging around backstage in plain sight. A guy walked up to him, handed him some money, said it was a donation, and Pope was surprised but impressed with this donation and put it away. Brother Ray Dudley came to the ring. He said Devon was calling him a bully. He said he was a bully indeed, and thus he now wants to be known as Bully Ray. He was out there to wrestle, and this is what he was wearing, everyone. A black skull cap, a gray shirt that looked like a bowling shirt, tan shorts, no knee pads, and then black boots. Oh my God. So he announced that he was in fact a bully, but he had found the biggest, scariest man he could find backstage and called him out here for a fight. So out walks Amazing Red.
My God, you are loud. Jesus.
Well, I have no talent, so I try to mask it with a giant great volume.
My foot is like, hold on. Go ahead.
Are you ready?
No, I'm trying to get situated.
All right. So yes, he announced he is called the biggest, scariest guy out. Now came Amazing Red. Amazing Red's really talented. People like him. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with him. He came out here. He was beaten for 3 straight minutes. He got one move, and then Bully Ray pinned him.
Is there a doctor in the house?
They couldn't find a legit jobber to job here.
No, they didn't. You know, I had to talk about this, because I'm sure we got some doctors listening. So I kicked someone in the elbow tonight, and I didn't even think about it at the time. It just was like, ow. That hurt, oh well. And then I moved on. Didn't really hurt all that bad, just hurt for a second. And then I moved on. I came home. I watched WEC. I watched TNA. Played around with the cats. I ran up and down the stairs. I fed the cats. I walked down the stairs and back up the stairs. Sat down to do the show, and literally sometime during the granny segment, my foot started to hurt. I started to throb. And then when I stood up to go down to get ice, I could barely put weight on this foot. What happened to me?
Something wrong with your chair?
No, I don't think so.
Did they cut off oxygen to the leg?
I don't know.
I have another theory.
That hurts. What's that?
Somewhere in this world there is...
somebody with a voodoo doll?
Yeah, that could work too. I was going to say you have a long-lost twin, and when he cuts himself shaving, you bleed. So maybe when you kick this man, he hurt his foot, and so later he, I don't know, walked across hot coals.
What?
He did something else to hurt his foot.
I see.
He dropped a bowling ball in his foot.
Well, that's something you've probably done before, isn't it?
Not impossible.
I wonder if it was like I could have injured a bone, but it was fine, and then I sat funny and popped it out. I literally have no idea, but it's killing me. All right, go ahead. I'm going to try and get out of this show. I really hurt right now.
So, yes, Bully Ray beat up Amazing Red.
Oh, yeah, this sucked. Way to go, Red. Big comeback.
Yeah, he was about to kill him with a chair when Devon came out to save, and Bully Ray ran away. I
just love the idea that they're trying to build... What the hell was that?
This laptop, when I scroll to the bottom, it beeps to let me know I'm at the bottom.
I see.
Whereas mine, it just doesn't go. It stops.
I love the idea that they think that Bully Ray beating up random guys is going to make people want to see Bubba versus Devon. You know what I mean? Like, how does this build interest in this match? Because he's a bully and we want Devon to beat him up? It's like everything they do, I don't even understand how it's supposed to make me want to see the match, because it's not working. No. Whatever it is.
No.
All right, go on.
They went to commercial. When they came back, there was a car. There was the Impact logo on the screen. There was a car driving around, and then it ended.
I hope people are not tuning in hoping we know what this was all about.
I have no idea who or what this was, or why it happened, or why it was on TV.
No, yeah.
Okay, I'm not the only one. Then we had Rob Terry versus Rob Van Dam. Mm-hmm. RVD cut a promo. He vowed to win the title and to get Jeff Hardy's ass.
So he said, I'm going to get what I've been waiting for, Jeff Hardy's ass.
Jeff Hardy's ass. So, if...
I'd have used a different terminology. That's just me.
Speaking of terminology, the best show in the history of the site, everyone, is The Three Briscoes.
That's a pretty good one, huh?
Oh, it was great. It was great.
Papa would be telling me to man up right now.
That's true.
Not sit here with
you take some medicine, some Jim Beam Black Label whiskey.
If there was some Jim Beam Black Label whiskey here right now, I'd be down in that shit like nobody's business.
But the reason I bring this up is because you were talking to the Briscoes. I think it was Mark. But as you were talking to him, you used the word surreptitious.
Surreptitious, yes. I thought it was funny.
It seemed out of place.
Hey, Mark is a well-educated young man.
Is he?
I know he probably doesn't look it. No, I know he doesn't.
I was going to say, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he'd had that much book learning.
Hey, have you seen the fucking picture on the front page of the goddamn website?
It looks like he can't read.
No, he was actually reading that book.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Somebody walked by and snapped the picture. It wasn't a posed picture, nothing. They were sitting there and he was reading that book and they were like, I've got to take a picture of this and send it to Bryan. That's what happened.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone, stop listening to this show. Go listen to that one.
It's much better.
Much better than this. So, Rob Terry is a horrible wrestler. RVD is a sometimes
they had the most god-awful lockup I've ever seen at the beginning of this match.
RVD is a sloppy wrestler. Yes, they had a goddamn awful lockup. Then they did a bit where they disengaged, and then they tried to, I guess you'd call it sparring. They moved their hands about as if they were teasing strikes, and then went to commercial. This match fucking sucked.
It was horrible.
It was so bad.
It went through a commercial break. That's what still, to this moment, astounds me.
Someone thought Rob Van Dam and Rob Terry would be so great it needed to be long enough to go through a commercial break. It was so bad that it was only after the show, that show was done, and I was up here, and I was going over my notes, I realized I had not written down who won, and I did not know. And I was in the room the whole time. And I just stopped paying attention to the screen entirely. I had to look up. I shouldn't have been surprised. RVD won with his splash.
Yeah.
So there you go. We had Jeff Jarrett's Mixed Martial Arts Challenge. It was the exact same shit as last week.
Yeah, they found a guy, Jose Rios from San Juan. Jarrett beat him and choked him out, and
that's it.
If they're doing the gimmick that Jarrett actually knows MMA now, it probably would have worked a little better if he'd started this gimmick more than about 5 weeks ago, because the idea that he is now a shooter, not only is Jeff Jarrett now a shooter after 5 weeks of training, he also owns a dojo, they say. So 5 weeks he owns a dojo, and he's a shooter. He's a black belt now, apparently. And this is after a long career of being a Southern-style pro wrestling worker.
Yeah.
I call shenanigans.
You also mentioned last week about how Abdullah and Brody would have had fans running from them in terror. Oh, yeah. You made the same point last week, but it was even more clear. They were focusing on children. And I mean like 8-year-old girls who could not wait to get into this ring and beat the fuck out of Jeff Jarrett. Yeah. Yeah. It was depressing.
Business has changed.
Then you had the main event. Kazarian and Jeff Hardy versus Matt Morgan and Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson's first match back since getting concussed. Remember probably been about 15 years ago. Shawn Michaels made a comeback after concussion. And they did a match with Owen Hart. Yeah. And they had this legendary. They had a great match, as these two men were wont to do. And then out of nowhere, Owen hits his enziguri. And Shawn sells it, but he makes his comeback, and then about a minute passes, and he collapses in the ring. And they stopped the show. They went to take care of him, to tend to him. This was, I suppose I may have had Prodigy at the time, but I was worked. I thought Shawn had suffered a terrible injury here. I was very concerned. You know how much money was made by the Pro Wrestling Hotlines after that happened? They made a fucking bank. Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's what happened in 2010. A minute into this match, Kazarian hit Anderson with an enziguri. He dropped like a stone, and then 20 seconds later, he shoved it off and it worked normal. Yeah. Yeah. Why should we care about anything? Well, that's what astounded me was, so he gets hit with an enziguri. He sells it for a moment, and then he's back up working again. So I guess presumably he's healed, would be what we're supposed to believe. But then at the end of the match, he makes a comeback after they have the 7-foot guy play babyface in peril. That's always great. And he goes up to the top rope, but suddenly he can't make it to the top rope because he's dizzy. Yeah. So apparently after trying to send a message for weeks about how nobody should work with concussions and it's not cool and you got to take care of your head, in the storyline, Anderson ended up working with a concussion. So, yeah, this show can fuck off forever. And he couldn't get up top rope. Rob Terry turned on him. And Rob Terry, everyone. Rob Terry. Yeah, Rob Terry turned on Mr. Anderson because, of course, they're not working the next pay-per-view. No, of course not. So, yeah, this was the worst Impact ever, I've decided. Just not a single redeeming thing about this show. Very hard. The Hooters girls were hot. Yeah. That's the best I can do. I mean, seriously, there was like nothing good on this show of any kind. Every segment sucked. There was no good comedy. It sucked bad. No good wrestling. There were no good interviews. Everything was nonsensical. Just a useless television show. Like a show that literally, this show was so bad that if it were like this every week, the show would deserve to be canceled. Just fucking god-awful. And keep in mind, they taped 4 or 5 weeks of television during this set of tapings, so we're in for just horror this holiday season. To the back! Sweetness ends right here, though. We got to talk about Impact. A god-awful program, a shit show, horrible, terrible professional wrestling programming. Granny should hope that I don't know. I don't want to say these things here at the end of the year.
But if she wants me to swear off swearing, then something's going to have to be done about Impact, because I cannot do an Impact review without saying swear words. Unless it's like a really, really great show. And even then, I'd probably say it was a fucking great show. But this was a fucking bad show, and there's nothing I can do about that, so don't yell at me. Actually, you know what? This show was fine, but there was some stupid shit on it.
There was. I leaned over to you during us watching this, and I said, the bad part about my job is I got to get up at 6 a.m., or I got to get up at 5 to be at work by 6. And I realized that the bad part of your job is watching Impact. And the more we watched it, the more confusing it got, and the sillier it got.
Let me say something about Impact, because I just thought of this right now. You should never have a product where people just assume it sucks.
Right.
Like, right there I just said, this show fucking sucked. Then I sat there for a second and I thought, and then I realized, actually, this show didn't fucking suck.
It was fine.
This was just your average Impact with some stupid shit on it. But anytime you've got a product where you immediately assume that it sucked, fucking sucked, in fact, that's a bad sign. You've got to work on improving your product when that's the first thing that people think about it. So we're going to get into it here, and that is going to be the plan. I got a couple of drops here I was looking at, and I guess we'll probably play some of these. Actually, you know what? I'm going to open with this song right here, because once you hear it, you're going to understand what we're talking about here in the next Impact segment. So let me play this song, and everyone... And it rhymes with goof. Wait, what did I say to Lance?
Well, you were drunk on...
I realize that, but I offended him?
Well, he doesn't drink, and he doesn't take drugs, and I don't know, maybe you offended him?
I think you're wrong.
Okay.
In fact, he was one of the first people to text me when I said that I was not going to post the show. Actually, the first person was Mikey Whipwreck, who I'm not sure, but I think he may have threatened physical violence if I did not post the show. So those were the two things that really compelled me to put it up there. But Lance is wrong, everybody. I'm going to tell you why. Because on Impact tonight, the very first segment involved Ric Flair.
That's right.
And Ric Flair came out, and he did, in fact, say roof. Am I wrong, Craig?
We rewound it and watched it, and watched it again, and then again.
Yeah.
And each time, he said roof.
He said to Mick Foley, you're a pathetic human being because you set the bar such that kids are now jumping off roofs.
Roofs.
That's what he said.
Yep.
So... who are you fucking people to tell Ric Flair he doesn't know how to say roof? Exactly.
I have nothing to say.
Let me open up this show here.
Roof, whatever.
Fortune came out, and I think they've got a new theme every week. Not sure. I don't pay enough attention, nor do I care.
Right.
They still hold up for random fingers, even though there's approximately 16 men in the group.
They bend their ring finger down to indicate 4. Why they can't just use the 4 bending their thumb in like the horsemen used to do, I have no idea.
Make sure you talk right in that mic there, Craig.
I'm sorry.
Got to talk into the front of it, not the sides.
Okay.
It's very, very specific sort of microphones right here.
Not omnidirectional.
Let me explain this segment. This was the best and the worst of TNA, in the sense that one of the strengths of TNA, obviously, is that the promos are not scripted. You got Ric Flair out there cutting a very passionate promo about how Mick Foley was a garbage wrestler who jumped off fucking roofs and kids got hurt, and he was the reason that youngsters today were in hospitals. He was the reason the business was in the shape that it was in, with people falling into glass and barbed wire and all this other bullshit. He had Foley passionately explaining that it was not his fault. He may have had a little to do with it, but now he wanted to be part of the solution. And then you had Eric Bischoff, I believe, cutting a promo on the dirt sheets. I'm not sure. But the point was, they all showed great passion. These, I think, were great promos. I'm not entirely sure, because it's TNA, and they have a very, very annoying habit. And I know that when I give this criticism, some of you out there are going to go, oh, it's Bryan saying this. Let's just ignore it. Bryan is biased towards TNA. How about you listen to this fucking criticism, and then you decide if I'm just being an asshole here. You had 3 guys cutting great promos. And if you ever listen to a great announcer, or if you ever watch a movie with great dialogue, there's a lot of silence. There are a lot of moments where nobody is talking. There are many moments where somebody says something profound, like I do regularly on this show. And then there's that silence, so that it sinks in. And sometimes in the movies, one of the main characters will talk very quietly. And there's a mic right by his mouth, obviously, off screen. But he's still talking very quietly.
I'm thinking of Mickey Rourke.
Because, I'm thinking of you, fucker.
Really?
But anyway, because you have to strain. You have to strain to hear what they say, which causes you to listen. These are powerful things.
I have powerful words.
In TNA, these fucking people, this happens all the time. They tell these people to go cut promos on each other. And it is basically a bad edition of Wrestling Observer Radio with call-ins. Everybody is screaming over each other. Ric Flair is trying to scream about how Mick Foley's killed the business. Meanwhile, Mick Foley is trying to scream about how he didn't kill the business. They're both fucking screaming over each other. You hear maybe every 4th word from either guy, and you can hear that it's pretty damn good, but you're not entirely sure, because they just keep fucking talking over each other. And then you've got Bischoff screaming at people, and it was just like, this would have been 1,000,000 times more effective if they would have done a run-through or something, or if everyone involved had at least given their opponent an opportunity to speak uninterrupted.
At a couple times, Mick Foley was actually batting Flair's mic out of his hand so he could get a word in edgewise.
Yes. I understand that you want to add a little realism to this. I understand you want to make this look more like a shoot. But listen, everybody knows this is not a shoot. Yes, I'm sure that Ric Flair believed 95% of what he said. And I'm sure that Mick Foley believed 95% of what he said. We heard 35% of what either guy had to say. So I'm begging them. I'm telling you, I'm saying this as someone who would like this show to be better. Tell these guys to quit fucking talking over each other. It was not just this segment. This happens every week, especially with the women. Oh, my God. Anytime the girls have to scream at each other, it's just like constant shrieking. Everybody shrieking over each other. You have no idea what people are mad about. You have no idea what they're trying to say to each other. It's just shrieking over each other. It's infuriating. So anyway...
So what was the point of this whole interview session? Do you remember?
I don't have any idea. I know there were scales in the ring.
Right.
There was going to be a weigh-in for something. I don't even know what it was. I don't even think anyone ever weighed in.
Right. They had 2 doctors out there to check out Morgan.
Why?
To see if he could work, and the same with Anderson.
Okay, first off,
Right?
Anderson wasn't even on a fucking show. Because
Right.
they interviewed him via satellite.
Correct.
So who the fuck were they weighing in here? Why did they have to weigh Matt Morgan in?
I'm not 100%.
Even Eric Bischoff was like, well, this is different. We're doing a weigh-in.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, so how about you explain why you're doing a fucking weigh-in on Impact?
I have no answer. I'm sorry.
So basically, this gist of it was the heels wanted Mr. Anderson to work, Foley and Morgan did not, and then they all screamed at each other, and Flair accused Foley of being an idiot, and Foley said now he was trying to not be an idiot or something. I don't even know. Again, if you watched this, you were probably very compelled by it. It probably did a very good rating, but what it was all about, I have no earthly idea, except for the Anderson stuff.
That makes two of us in this room. No idea.
So anyway, then we had a Jeff Hardy interview with Matt Morgan. He was in a pink hoodie, this being Hardy.
Yes, when did it become fashionable to wear a hoodie with a sports jacket?
You really think that Jeff Hardy is the pinnacle of fashion in 2010,
well,
Craig?
Miz wore one like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
You really think Miz is the pinnacle of fashion in 2010, Craig?
In the wrestling world, sure.
He's a heel. You're supposed to hate his fashion sense. So he went on, and I think, again, none of this is ever clear, but I think that I think that Jeff Hardy was trying to convince Matt Morgan that he should come back to the dark side.
Yeah, I got that as well.
All right. Jarrett and his crew came out, and he said he was opening up his $100,000 challenge to professionals.
This crap.
Iron Sheik, perhaps? Abdul the Butcher? I don't know. But Amazing Red came out, and the gimmick was Jarrett's trainer was putting Vaseline on Red's face and put it right in his eyes. So Red could not see, and so Jarrett tapped him with an ankle lock.
Right.
Now, the one thing that I did not like about this segment, well, it was wacky, but Taz acted like he had no idea why Jarrett's trainer was putting Vaseline on Red's face. Have you never watched one fight?
Apparently not.
Your gimmick is you're an MMA fighter.
Even boxing.
So, they did this, and then I guess the gimmick is that Jarrett realized that Red had a baby brother, and he wants to bring him in for the challenge next week.
If Red has a younger brother, it must be a fetus.
Tara and Madison Rain were having a meeting backstage, and Tara said they needed to get over with this quickly because she had a party she needed to attend with Generation Me.
Right.
I guess she's a cougar.
She's a cougar.
Or a MILF. Not sure if she's got buggers.
Kids?
I don't know.
Yeah.
RVD threatened to karate kick Jeff Hardy later. That was interesting. Then we had an Impact special. They said it was Generation Me versus Robbie E versus Kazarian in a 4-way to determine the #1 contender for the X title. Let me read that again.
Please do.
Generation Me versus Robbie E versus Kazarian in a 4-way to determine the #1 contender for the X title. Now, I just twice gave you the participants to this match. So guess the order of entrance. Well, the order of entrance was that Generation Me got no entrance. They were just in the ring. Then the next person to come out was Jay Lethal, who's not in the match. He was doing commentary. So they put him in the booth, and then out came Robbie E and then Kazarian. Don't even ask. I presume that they drew straws in the back.
This all screwed me up. I don't know why. I overthought this. Generation Me was in there. So I assumed it was a tag match because they were... And then when they weren't standing on opposite corners of each other, it really threw me off. And then we had a discussion, and you informed me that you are, in fact, overthinking this, Craig. And just keep it simple.
So, first off, Generation Me is a tag team. Now, why were they in a 4-way for the title? I don't know.
So one of them could become a singles wrestler and take the title from Jay Lethal, I guess.
So then, of course, they worked as a team.
Right.
No babyface in this match.
No.
No heat.
Right.
Robbie tried to tag Kazarian, but Kazarian refused. And then he broke up a pin immediately. So I'm not sure what his plan was. He didn't want in the match, but he also did not want to lose the match. So GM Generation Me did a whole bunch of moves, and then Kazarian pinned one of them.
Right.
This whole thing sucked.
A little bit, yes.
A little bit, a lot.
Generation Me, I like their stuff.
Like what?
Well, I just like their moves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you like their moves. Well, they're your team.
Their moves are very cool. Their transitions and their psychology. Their moves are cool. I'll leave it at that. You're shaking your head.
I was just wondering if there was any more to this.
No, I think they are spectacular at high spots. I just kind of wish that they could incorporate.
They looked older than 10. I agree. So this was horrible. And then we had Sarita being up Velvet
forever.
This was the usual TNA brawl. I really should have gone. I didn't care enough to go back and time it, but it had to have been 3-4 minutes. Sarita attacks Velvet, and she beats on her for a while. And then Velvet makes a comeback.
Right.
And she beats on her for a while. And then Sarita makes a comeback. And at that point I was like, I'll bet you anything that Velvet is about to make a comeback. I was correct. So Velvet made a big comeback, and at one point kicked Sarita in the vagina. I remember that.
Yes.
And it went on and on and on. And then Sarita was choking her out with a belt. And so she's choking her out with a belt, and the camera pans quickly to the left, and Angelina's shown running in, and it pans quickly back to the right, and Sarita has vanished. Yeah. I think there was supposed to be a cut here.
There was, if you
blinked, you missed the cut, and a girl just vanished into thin air.
And even more than that, there was a door there, but there was like a big shelf across the door. So to escape, you would have had to move the shelf, open the door, and go out. So it was obviously badly edited. At the beginning of this thing, you saw Sarita coming in, and she had a belt behind her back. She was hiding the belt. And
of course.
She was hiding the belt and then walked into the door, opened the door to walk in, and proceeded to beat on this lovely young lady. But anyway, why the comebacks? Can't Sarita just lay her out?
Anything right.
If she could just lay her out, we could all save time.
No, they can't do that, you see. And it gets better. So they have a brawl for like 4 minutes.
Right.
And she apparently strangled her to death. Because at one point Velvet is screaming that she can't breathe.
Right.
Okay, so, now, that seems kind of important.
Breathing?
Velvet's larynx, as they call it in wrestling, has been crushed. She can't breathe no more. So as soon as Angelina runs in to make the save, and keep in mind they've been fighting for like 4 fucking straight minutes here. As soon as Angelina runs in to make the save, she bends down to see how Velvet is doing, and they cut away and never come back.
Right.
It's like,
you know what I mean? She might be blue right now.
She could be dead. But that wasn't the important part of the story. The 9-minute brawl was the important part of the story here. So then we had Flair and Bischoff talking to mystery people backstage, who ended up not being mysteries. It was Fortune, but it took forever to show that they were actually talking to Fortune. So Bischoff is explaining that AJ is going to try and get the gold back from Doug Williams. And again, we talk about this every fucking week. Eric says, Dixie has us in checkmate. She's got lawyers. She's probably bought off a judge, this, that, and the other thing. And then he says, we need every belt this company has. Right. The belts mean the power, he says.
Right. I don't know why either.
Is this been explained on Reaction, perhaps, somewhere that I've missed? Can somebody listening to this please do me a favor and explain why the fuck it would make the slightest bit of difference if these guys have the belts? What power comes with any of these belts? Because it seems to me that Bischoff and company run the ship, and if they got the company through illegal means, and a judge is going to rule against them, what the fuck do them having the belts have to do with anything? I mean, maybe they really think that if Jeff Hardy remains champion, then he won't go to jail on his drug charges in North Carolina. What if they really think that?
Officer, you can't send me to jail. I have this ugly belt.
Funny you should mention that, but we went, remember, I don't know if you were in the car with us, but I remember going to a show over the border, and I had 2 of the YWF championship belts in the trunk. including the Intercontinental title, because they spelled it wrong when they made the plate.
That's right.
And we got pulled over.
Uh-huh.
And when they popped open the trunk and saw the belts, they marked out. You remember this?
I don't remember this one. I remember another time we got pulled over. That they found Farmer's blade that he actually put in like the same box you would put a wedding ring in.
Uh-oh.
And they opened it up.
And by the way, what a dork.
Yeah. And they proceeded to tear the car apart.
Yeah, don't do that, everybody.
Yeah, and definitely when you're at the border, do not throw up your fists and say only these as weapons.
We had the Tara and Madison against Velvet and Angelina match for the vacant Divas titles, except Velvet was dead. So they beat the crap out of Angelina forever, and my God, was this a horrible match. This was horrendous action.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, who should run down to jump on the apron to make the save but Katie Lee? Winter.
Mm-hmm.
And Angelina tags her in. Winter makes an atrocious comeback.
Yeah.
Katie Lee has a reputation for being a good worker, and the TNA curse has struck her.
Already.
She was god-awful in this match. And she ended up getting the pin. They are the new tag team champions. Angelina, who, by the way, had made the hot tag to Winter, after they'd won the titles, she was petrified about what had happened. Horrified.
Right. Yeah, at one point, Tara actually got kicked in the vagina as well in this match and sold it the whole time. And let us talk about Madison's Reigns attire. I
don't remember seeing any attire.
Some flesh-colored
a flesh-colored
trunks.
thong.
No, they're trunks. They just they disappear.
Why not just be nude?
Well, it is TV PG.
I don't think it is, actually.
13 or whatever, I don't know.
And Tara also didn't seem to know who Winter was, so add her to the list of people that don't watch this fucking show.
Right. Nor did she work with her in the WWE.
We had a wacky skit with Pope, Orlando, and Eric. Orlando was dressed as Santa. Eric Young was a reindeer.
If he was dressed as Santa, I don't want that man in my house tomorrow night.
You don't want your son sitting on his lap, Craig?
No.
Then we had Doug Williams and AJ Styles in a 15-minute Iron Man match. Now,
15 minutes. You heard him right.
Did I not say weeks back that they would fuck this up by the end?
I asked you, I said, so is the Iron Man match 30 minutes? You said no. And I said, an hour? And you said no. 15 minutes.
Why they couldn't have just done a 20-minute draw, I don't know, because that probably would have been really fucking good. Instead, they do a 15-minute Iron Man match where they do a pinfall during the break.
Right.
A taped show, they do a pinfall during the break.
Not to mention when they came back from break, there was a chin lock going on in the middle of the ring.
Because you see, a chin lock is more important than a pinfall.
That's correct.
For those of you keeping track. So they had a hell of a match when it wasn't stupid.
Right.
And then we had a 4-minute call, and then almost immediately we had a 1-minute call.
No, it said this match has gone on 4 minutes. And then they said there's 60 seconds left in the match. So there was either a huge cut or there was a 2-minute cut.
Maybe they went for minutes, as in for days.
Right. And then and then we had the match all tied up at 1 apiece, so we had to go into overtime. And with the commercial and whatnot, I think this match might have went 7 minutes on the TV. So, again, why not just make it a 20-minute draw?
Because that would be too easy, Craig. Because that would make sense.
I also told you when we were watching this, I was watching Tribute to the Troops with my 4-year-old son. And if you remember, there was a battle royal to start off the show. In that few minutes, Cameron had figured out that when somebody got tossed out of the ring, that meant they were eliminated. And he was clapping and saying yay when the good guys would throw a bad guy out of the ring, because it was that simple for him to understand. This, however, made no sense. a lot of this show made no sense. It's very simple. Keep it simple and stupid.
Revelations from Craig here on the show, everybody. Revelations that Impact makes no sense.
I don't watch the show very often, and when I do watch it, I usually watch it mostly in fast forward, so I want to send my condolences across the room to you for having to put up with this
every
each
week,
and every
Craig.
week.
Every fucking week I watch this show.
I am so sorry.
And this was a pretty good episode.
It wasn't bad.
So then afterwards, they went to a draw, as noted, and AJ challenged him to a match at the pay-per-view. And everyone was sad because they wanted to see it tonight. We had an interview with Ken Anderson, who was supposed to be a babyface, but what an asshole. And I realize that's his gimmick. But he's like an unlikable asshole. They ask him if he's ready to return to the ring. He says, yeah, I'm clear to wrestle.
As opposed to a likable one?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, Steve Austin was a likable asshole.
All right.
So he said he'd been cleared to wrestle, and so they started asking him questions about what tests they'd run. And so they were playing it up like he was completely full of shit.
And he was
loudly chewing gum right into the mic, and then he blew both guys off and refused to talk about it anymore. Just came off like such a dick. Like, how can you like this man?
I don't.
Then we had another TNA special. Matt Morgan and the Machine Guns and RVD against Jeff Hardy, Beer Money, and Abyss.
Right.
And what I did not know at the time, but was informed upon watching this, was an 8-man tag where if Beer Money's team won, they got the tag team titles. So, for example, if Matt Morgan pinned Abyss, then Beer Money became the tag team champions of the world.
No.
Yeah.
If Matt Morgan pinned Abyss...
Oh, if Abyss pinned Morgan.
They got to keep...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See, if Abyss pinned Morgan, Beer Money would get the belts.
See, you weren't thinking...
Exactly.
You weren't thinking. You
because
have
it was
to
bullshit.
analyze, and you have to, again, keep it simple, stupid.
So they had the match, and it was all right. All that matters is that Sabin pinned Rude with a tornado DDT, which was awesome.
Awesome.
That meant the Machine Guns retained their titles. And the key to this entire thing, well, there were a couple of keys. Number one, they kept Jeff Hardy and RVD away from each other, but they did such a poor job of it that when it was over, I didn't care at all about seeing them wrestle each other in a match.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly at all, and maybe I don't know, maybe I had other things that I was doing, God knows, but when this match was over and all the babyfaces are celebrating and Matt Morgan was standing there with his arms in the air with the other babyfaces, I was like, I don't remember you being in this match at all.
Did he work in the match?
I don't know if he tagged in. I don't know if he was involved in a single spot. The only people I remember in this match were Beer Money and Machine Guns, because they were awesome.
Right.
I remember Shelley got beaten on.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that RVD made a shitty comeback. He was sloppy and all over the place.
Right.
And that's all I remember. I have no memory whatsoever of Matt Morgan. And apparently he had to do a weigh-in to make it into this match or something. I don't know.
With that said, I don't think Jeff Hardy was in the match much.
Well, I mean, there was a quick stare down at the end with RVD and Jeff Hardy,
right,
so I do vaguely remember him.
He scurried away. Jeff scurried away to the back as the match was ending.
And I think Abyss was beaten on one of the Machine Guns. I don't remember.
Yes, because I was laughing at Shelley punching Abyss, and Abyss was selling for him.
So anyway, long story short, this show was ineffective.
Right. Unless
the effect that you want is apathy.
Totally missable.
In which case it was an excellent show. To the back! Show's awful. It's such a fucking terrible television show. I look back, it's especially this week of all weeks, I look back and I realize that it's December 31st, and as I was mentioning with Lance today on the show, exactly 1 year ago, everybody was so fucking excited because January 4th was upon us. The Monday Night Wars were about to begin anew. Remember how excited people were?
I actually do now.
But like everything was going to turn around, and the Monday Night Wars were going to erupt, and somebody on the I think someone on the prediction show, Crumbly actually. I shouldn't reveal all these things, but he had a ridiculous prediction for Impact for 2010, which was so horribly wrong that it's laughable. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But here we are at the end of the fucking year, and they're doing a 1-1 rating and 1.4 million viewers. Like they've been doing for literally, I swear to God, like 4 fucking years.
I was going to say, that sounds awfully familiar.
Yeah. And you want to know why? Because this show sucks. It's the same shitty show week after week, resulting in the same shitty review on this show week after week. I always love when people get pissed off about our show here. Like, it was the same boring Bryan and Vinny review of Impact. Yeah, well, maybe it wasn't the same fucking stupid show every week. We have a different review of the goddamn thing. So yeah, this show is wretched. And it's even worse, actually, now, because usually it's Vince Russo trying to write 2 shows in a row. A Monday night and a Tuesday night taping. And he can't do that. It's like an impossibility. Because he just doesn't know what he's doing. So they tape 2 shows in a row and they fuck everything up. Now, this time around, they taped 4 shows in a row.
Oh, no.
Yeah. 4 shows they taped. They taped Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They taped a month worth of shows in a week. And then they tried to put them all together. And it is a hodgepodge of bullshit. Like, for example, we had a segment on this show where Mr. Anderson said, we don't have to wait till Sunday, which, you know, for anyone who's watched wrestling for any length of time, they would know that means that the pay-per-view is Sunday. We don't have to wait till Sunday means Sunday there's a pay-per-view. Yeah, well, there's not a pay-per-view Sunday. Pay-per-view's in a week and a half. But they taped all this shit in a weird order and melded it together, and there was another segment on here where the Pope is talking about how he wants to get some kids dogs for Christmas. It's after Christmas, everybody. Christmas was last fucking week. So anyway, this show is just wretched. Just a wretched program. And nothing makes sense. The motivation of these characters, I don't understand a goddamn thing. I don't know. I know who's supposed to be babyface and heel, but the fans don't know. And it just sucks.
I missed a week. I do not regret it. But it came back here trying to watch this, and yes, there were many things. It feels like I missed 6 months. For example, in this first segment, Mick Foley was there. I haven't seen Mick Foley since the time he wrestled Ric Flair. He called out Mr. Anderson, said they were buds because of a wacky story he told about a USO trip and Miss America. He said the biggest lie he ever said was that he was okay, and then no one ever came to him and told him he was not okay, so he was there to tell Mr. Anderson he was not okay. This made Anderson angry. He said he had been tested and cleared to wrestle. What? Shouldn't that end things? Shouldn't Mick have said, oh, all right.
Well, you missed last week where when he was explaining this, they played it off like he was full of shit.
Perhaps a highlight package would have helped. So, Morgan came out, said Anderson had better be ready because when they wrestle, he's going to go full speed. And then Jeff Hardy came out and he announced that later they're going to wrestle each other in a tag match with mystery partners.
Where to begin? First off, why is Jeff Hardy a booker?
I don't know.
Second off, when he talked about a match with tag team partners, I was confused. I thought this meant that these 2 guys were going to team up and they would face a mystery team. I thought that throughout the show. Then it turns out they each had a mystery partner. That could have just been confusion on my part. But, you know, usually you shouldn't be confused like that if things are simple enough. So then we've got the issue of Anderson. First off, I cannot stand Mr. Anderson on this show. Such ridiculous go-away heat. It is possible to have a character who is an asshole who is likable. He is an asshole who is just an asshole. I have no idea how anybody cheers him or why. He's a complete dick. He's just a complete dick. He's like the best heel on the show, and we're supposed to cheer him. So then we've got Morgan, who, I don't know, like, to me, Morgan, I could have sworn said that he gave up a position in Fortune. He gave up guaranteed money for the rest of his life. He gave up his career to protect Mr. Anderson, and now he doesn't care. So, what? Why? Why doesn't he care anymore?
I don't know.
What was the turning point where Matt Morgan suddenly didn't give a fuck?
You know, no one cares about Mr. Anderson's health.
Foley was passionate about Mr. Anderson's health last week. Now he comes out and he's just cracking jokes. It's just so fucking stupid. I don't know if it's because of the order that it was taped or what the deal was, but I just don't understand this anymore. I mean, it made sense when everybody was all pissed off that Mr. Anderson was wrestling with a concussion. Now it's become a joke. Now it's like no one cares anymore, and he already wrestled 2 weeks ago that apparently people have completely forgotten about, and Mick is talking about how, I wish somebody would have told me not to wrestle when I was hurt. And Anderson said, listen, I told you I was clear. Are you calling me a liar? And Foley says, no, I just think that someone needs to watch out for you, which, in fact, is Foley calling him a liar. His whole thing is just bullshit. Just bullshit.
It was a very, very lame segment. Speaking of lame segments, we think about Eric Young and Orlando Jordan's New Year's party. Do we have to talk about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It sucked.
It sucked. Eric Young was there in a beard. He was, I guess, supposed to be the old year going out. Orlando was there in a diaper. He was presumably the New Year. There was shit about booze. It was really awful.
They announced completely at random that Sarita and Velvet Sky would be having a strap match.
Yes.
Why? I don't know.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Robert Roode wrestled Chris Sabin. They had a very fun match. Robert Roode won clean with a spine buster.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't they do this the whole show?
It was like in the middle of just a bullshit show, they suddenly just had a great match. I could not even conceive of this.
It was like we were watching Impact and said, this sucks, let's turn to Ring of Honor for 10 minutes. And there it was.
This match was great.
It was great.
Then they went right back to bullshit.
Immediately back to bullshit. RVD was wandering on backstage, moaning about Bischoff and Christ knows what. We had another segment at Eric Young's New Year's party. Shark Boy was there, literally begging for TV time. He talked about supposedly working there and never being on the show. He would do anything to get on TV, including sit in Orlando Jordan's lap.
RVD came out and did a promo and said, this is almost a direct quote, "It's painfully clear that Eric Bischoff is the man in charge of TNA." It is painfully clear. Torturous would actually be a better word. But I don't know why he said this like this was a revelation to him, even though Bischoff as head of TNA has been a storyline for like 2 months now. But no one in TNA actually watches their own TV show, so they don't know what's going on. So he was talking about how he had a mystery opponent in the pay-per-view, and then I guess he had another mystery opponent tonight who was Robbie E.
This is the kind of surprise that awaits you at the TNA pay-per-view.
Yeah, you'll get a guy like Robbie E. Mm-hmm. So RVD beat him after Robbie E. actually got heat on Rob Van Dam. And they announced, by the way, during this match, that Reaction was going to be a year in review of TNA hosted by Eric Bischoff. I actually regretted not recording this reaction because that would have been the show of the year, I will bet. So RVE won, and then Jeff Hardy appeared on the big screen, said they had a very special opponent chosen for Rob at the pay-per-view. If Rob survived, he'd get Hardy. I could have sworn that Morgan and Anderson was a match at the pay-per-view.
Yes, this is my question as well.
A title shot against Hardy. Apparently they're setting up a three-way or something. It's like Raw. I don't know.
No, it's much worse than Raw. There are 2 number 1 contenders matches on the show.
And by the way, there is in the next couple of weeks going to be a 4-way with Miz, Morrison, Jerry Lawler, and Randy Orton on Raw.
Well, there you go.
So for those of you wondering where that's leading, that's your answer. So we had Kazarian.
Fucked up match.
Kazarian showing up with 2 blondes. Sarita cut a promo on Velvet backstage. None of this mattered. Kazarian came out and talked about how he'd beaten 3 men last week to become number 1 contender for the X title. He's going to win the belts at the pay-per-view, collect some sort of bounty for fortune.
Because you see, the only way to get money from being a champion is to collect a bounty for it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're only about power and leverage, not money.
Cut a promo about Lethal. They had footage of Lethal in his home. I presume this was from a segment on Reaction. It was brand new to me, so I didn't really know what was going on except that he was at his house. So he did his promo. It was not quite as bad as a John Morrison promo, but it would fit right in on Raw.
Yes.
He called Lethal's mom Fugly and Rancid, and Fugly, by the way, in 2010, and 2011, mind you. And then Jay ran down to make the save for his mom, and he slid into the ring, and immediately, he didn't even stand up before he was laid out.
Yes.
And
he slid in the ring and laid there.
They claimed Kazarian hit him with a baton.
Well, he did.
Hell of a save by Jay Lethal. He looked like the biggest fucking fool here.
He did technically get hit with a baton, but yes, he couldn't.
We're supposed to get behind this man.
He couldn't even hit a couple of punches and then get laid out. No. Yeah. He ran in. He was disposed of summarily. He posed no threat to Kazarian, and that was that.
He could not get in the ring and be running wild on the man who had made fun of his mom, and the heel had to cheat to lay him out. No, they could not even do that. He couldn't even get to his feet before he was laid out. Is this stuff that hard? How many times in 2010 have I asked that question? Forget 2010. How many times in the last 5 years have I asked that question? Is it really this hard? The answer, everybody, is no, it's not this hard. You just have to think about this for like a second. But there's no thinking in TNA. And we had Foley meeting with Eric and Flair.
I missed a week. I had no idea what was going on here.
He said they were playing around with Anderson's mind. He said Anderson and Morgan needed to know who they were facing tonight so they'd have time to properly prepare. Apparently Foley did not know that they were having teammates and not opponents, although I guess there was one opponent for each of them. I don't know what difference an hour would have made. They can't stretch unless they know who their opponents are. So Flair told them to fuck off. Velvet and Sarita in a strap match. This match was abysmal. This was, again, if this match would have taken place in 1997, people would have given it -5 stars and called it one of the worst matches in the history of wrestling. But there's been so much shit in professional wrestling in the last 10 years that there are going to be people on the board that are going to post tomorrow that they thought that this was a good match.
You know, I don't disagree with you, but I watched this and I didn't even blink. It was just another shitty TNA match.
This was horrible.
It was, okay, so there's the strap match. First of all, the strap would not stay on. Sarita's strap kept falling off. Then they did every finish ever with the one wrestler tagging on the turnbuckles and the other one
nobody cared about.
That nobody cared about.
The key to this is that Sarita was beating on Velvet with the strap. The heel, for those of you that don't watch Impact, or for those of you who do and are still confused.
I watched it.
Sarita is the heel. She was beating on Velvet with this strap. Velvet finally makes a comeback. She's strapping Sarita, and nobody cares. It's silent.
See, I assumed that all the women, with the possible exception of Mickie James and SoCal Val, were heels.
No, there are baby faces. They're just...
That's odd.
Terribly booked. As was Velvet here. They did the same finish they do in every strap match in history. Velvet was carrying her on her back, and she touched one corner, two corner, three corner. Sarita was touching them at the same time, and as Velvet was about to hit the last corner, Sarita flipped over and touched the corner to win. However, it's fucking TNA, so even this was fucked up, as the strap actually fell off of Sarita. So Sarita was unstrapped when she hit the final turnbuckle, and they still announced her as the winner. It would be hilarious if it was not so sad.
That's the new standard. The James Storm versus Chris Harris match with the blindfold kick kept coming off as worse. But it was the same concept. They can't even get their equipment right. So then, can't just have a bad match, leave it at that. No. Sarita, who won the match, by the way, Sarita jumps Velvet and beats her with a strap. Then Angelina came out to make the save. Then Sarita fled. Then Velvet went away pouting.
And so, by the way, to recap, Velvet Sky lost the match clean, then got beat up. Someone had to make the save for her, and then she pouted and stormed to the back, and she's supposed to be the beloved baby
Well,
face.
that's why I say there are no baby faces. Yes, so then we had a commercial. Then Angelina went after Sarita backstage. She attacked her like a maniac, unprovoked, and then she got her ass kicked. And again, I guess we're supposed to cheer for her as well?
This actually was worse than the match. Velvet... oh, my God. Angelina attacks Sarita. And Sarita is repeatedly saying, and I quote, "Ow!" First off, retape. People should not be saying "ow" repeatedly when they're attacked in a backstage segment. So then, after beating up Sarita, in a fair fight, makes her own comeback and lays out Angelina.
That's what I thought.
Who, again, is supposed to be the babyface. And Winter has to make the save for Angelina. 2-on-1 against the heel.
Yeah.
I give up.
Yeah, this show sucks. We had Doug Williams backstage.
No, you skipped a segment.
I did?
They had a year in review, look forward to 2011 deal, where they said they were going to reach new heights in 2011 and continue to amaze. So at least they were half right.
Then Doug Williams is backstage talking to Magnus. Doug said he was in a tag match, but he had no partner. So
why does that always happen on this show?
I don't know.
It would be nice if it only happened once on a show, for example.
But yes, it was apparently counting the main event, he was the third person in the show to be booked in a tag match with a mystery partner. Or they put him in a handicap match for no reason. Or they said, Doug, you're in a tag match tonight, but you have to find your own partner. I don't know. But he was not concerned. He was just going to fight 2-on-1. And Magnus said, no, I'll be your partner. And Doug said, cool.
Jarrett came out for the MMA challenge. An awful segment. He had Team Jarrett with him, including Gunner and Murphy. It's always you always know there's trouble when Gunner and Murphy are out there.
Have they ever been in a good segment?
No, of course not. So Jarrett did a promo noting he tapped out Red, and he said this week he was going to take on Red's baby brother. And Red came out alone, and Jarrett said, I know your baby brother is probably scared, but if he comes out, I'll give him the first shot. So he turns his back. Out comes a big jacked up guy who just happened to have gear. And, you know, Red would have had to say one line, which is, I said it was my baby brother, not my little brother. Nope, couldn't even do that. Big guy gets in the ring. Jarrett turns around. The guy beats his ass. I swear to God, everybody. This big non-wrestler, Red's brother, beats the shit out of Jarrett, puts him in a bunch of submissions. Jarrett has to repeatedly get the ropes. Finally, Gunner and Murphy pull him to safety. He bails to the back.
Actually, it's even worse than that. Gunner and Murphy pulled him to safety. Red, who the gimmick as established within this very segment is that he is small and puny and needs help. Red ran up to Gunner and Murphy and kicked their ass. Then the bell rang, I believe, here, just randomly.
Yeah, the bell just rang.
Randomly. Then Jarrett got a guitar. Then Red stole the guitar and destroyed it, and then the heels left.
Yeah. So, for those of you wondering what's going on, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, because what they are doing is, every week, Jeff Jarrett's gimmick is different. One week he is a feared shooter, and the next week he is a coward that knows nothing about MMA. And it varies by the week, which makes it impossible to get into this.
Yes.
I know that at the pay-per-view they're going to be doing Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle. Apparently that's set up next week. Why the fuck we should care about that when he just got beat up by Red's little brother, I have no idea. I don't know why he's not facing Red's brother at the pay-per-view. Because to me, if I watch this segment, that's what the conclusion I would come to.
Sure.
Jeff was just made to look like a complete pussy by Red's brother. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. I have no explanation for this.
So there's more. Jeff, who's upset about this, he wanted to make sure it didn't happen again, so he goes to Bischoff. So these are the two solutions he comes up with. One, he'll only fight guys at his height or shorter.
Not weight. Height.
Oh, weight limit. Height limit.
Yeah.
Two, they must be framed only as exhibition matches.
Yes.
So apparently, had his encounter with Red's little brother been billed as an exhibition, things would have gone differently.
I guess.
I suppose. Bischoff was a little
I don't know
similar
why
to
you
this.
wanted it to be an exhibition.
I don't know what it has to do with anything.
I know where it's leading, but I don't know what they do. I mean, obviously the idea is that's how you get Kurt Angle back, because he's not in a match. He's in an exhibition.
See.
But when you look at how they put the story together, it makes no sense. What happened that required Jeff Jarrett to require these to be exhibitions?
So, point A is Angle's fired. Point B is we need to have an exhibition match so we can bring him back. Point C is blank, and point D is Angle's in the exhibition.
Yeah.
I see. Well, that makes sense in that way, then. Number two, Jarrett announced here, it will be okay, we'll have them sign a waiver.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they haven't been doing that until now.
No, these guys just
All
come out of the crowd.
Who've been jumping into the ring and getting beaten and choked and unconscious by Jeff Jarrett have been doing so on the honesty method.
Yeah. You would think with all the legal problems that Bischoff is having in storyline, he would have thought of this, but he never did.
I guess not.
Because his character is a fucking moron, apparently.
Well, they've just taken out their word.
Jesus, this sucks.
Rob Terry and AJ Styles versus Doug Williams and Magnus.
God, they've killed the AJ Doug Williams feud.
Yes.
Not only they killed it, but like, in this match, first off, when Rob Terry came out, I totally had forgotten he had turned heel. And apparently the fans had forgotten as well, because the fans, throughout this match, booed Magnus, cheered AJ, and there was kind of a mixed reaction for Doug Williams. And AJ ended up pinning Magnus with Doug's finish, and everybody cheered.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm not amazing, really.
And
it's expected at this point.
I believe that Magnus is technically a babyface now. He did make a babyface comeback here, but I think it was his first babyface comeback. It was pretty clunky. Madison Rayne came out. She's wearing a gown. She had a bunch of sharp-dressed men to carry her into the ring and hold the ropes for her. This took a very long time. Her music was playing the entire time. Her ring song appears to consist of exactly 3 notes over and over again. Mm-hmm. Very, very annoying. She said her dress cost $79,000. She said, and I'm summarizing here, that people want a classy champ like her, not a country girl or a slut. And of course, she had to use that word, like Mickey. So Mickey came out and tore up the dress, and that was that.
It's one of those segments where you wonder what the point of the segment was. Like, obviously it led to a confrontation between these two girls, but let's just pretend this is real. Why was there a segment with Madison Rayne coming out in an evening gown with a bunch of dudes? You know what I mean? like Eric Bischoff put this on the format?
Yeah.
Madison in an evening gown comes out to speak. I don't know.
They do that all the time.
Yeah. This was not the worst thing on the show.
We had hidden camera footage of the Pope going to the kennel to adopt dogs.
And by the way, I got to go back to that segment. Madison is now doing a poor woman's Vicky Guerrero, and it's really embarrassing. Actually,
it really makes you appreciate the talent of Vicky Guerrero.
It really does.
She doesn't say "excuse me." I believe she says "shut up" is her catchphrase. But whereas when Vicky says "excuse me," it's actually fun. When Madison yells "shut up," it's shrill and grating, and it has turned the channel heat.
Yes.
And it's not good. Yes, we had the Pope going to the kennel to adopt dogs. He specifically said he wanted pit bulls. Why was there a camera crew here?
I don't know.
We see the camera crew backstage in TNA all the time now. And I guess in a way, because we have seen in the past 10 to 15 years, it's standard that guys will just cut they will not cut promos. They will have conversations in front of the camera. And you often think, why are you talking in front of the camera? So that's their solution to get around it is the TNA camera crew is walking around secretly taping guys to catch their hidden conversations. Okay, I can deal with that. Why did the camera crew go to the kennel?
He called them there, I guess.
They hid in a bush?
We got more bullshit to talk about. Who cares? That, on the grand scheme of things, it does not matter at all. The main event was an awful segment.
Oh, my God. See, actually, I did not... I knew this show was stupid. I did not hate it until this match. I hated this match.
It was Morgan and a partner against Anderson and a partner. So, Anderson's partner, of course, is Bully Ray, and Morgan's partner is Devon Dudley. So, they actually put Bubba and Devon in the ring together before the pay-per-view.
Okay.
That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, 80% stalling early. Foley comes out to do commentary. He is so concerned that Mr. Anderson is wrestling when he is apparently not cleared that he begins cracking jokes and LOLing. So Gunner and Murphy come out to get rid of Foley, which distracts everybody in the ring. As this happens, Bubba attacks Devon from behind. The moment he lays a hand on him, they cut to the announcers. They then cut back, and Devon is doing spots with Anderson, like the Bubba thing had never happened. This is called terrible editing. So, Foley, they cut back, he has put the sock on the geeks. The show ends. The final reaction is beginning.
Oh, my God.
So they come back, like, 1 second later. I swear to God. Foley is putting the sock on the geeks. It fades to black. And when it fades back in, that 1 second later, Foley is on the ground, handcuffed, and they claim he has been hit with a nightstick. This all happened in a matter of 1 second, apparently. So, then they cut back to the ring, and Bubba is getting the heat on Devon. Their brawl, which has been built up for a month and a half now, or however long, started while they were filming Mick Foley, Gunner, and fucking Murphy. So, I just wrote a big long rant here. I need to jump forward in my notes. Morgan and Anderson are in the ring together. Morgan nearly killed him with a choke slam. They didn't even make a big deal about the fact that these two supposed friends are now fighting. All 4 guys ended up in the ring. Morgan, accidentally or on purpose, who knows, we're supposed to care, we don't, clotheslined Anderson in the back of the head and pinned him. So yes, the 2-month storyline where Morgan was ready to retire and had given up all of this money, all of this stuff to protect Mr. Anderson. Now he does not give a fuck at all that he clotheslined this guy in the back of the head when he probably has a concussion in storyline. And it's impossible to care about these people. It's impossible to like Matt Morgan. It's impossible to like Mr. Anderson. It's impossible to care about Bubba and Devon now. We've already seen them fight. It sucked. It's just, this is the worst show I've ever seen in my life.
The biggest key to me of all of that was just the
Bubba and Devon are just another feud.
It's just another TNA feud.
Yeah.
That's a lower level than just another Raw feud or SmackDown feud. So, yes, they're because while they were both in the match, at least Bubba was hiding from Devon. They had not made contact yet. So I wasn't that angry. Then Governor Murphy come out. This distracted all 4 men. Then we saw Devon hit Bubba. Then
Bubba hit Devon.
Bubba hit Devon. Then several minutes went by, and then it went back to the ring, and as you noted, Bubba Ray Dudley was beating up Devon Dudley. And we had missed the first encounter between the two.
Well, we thought it was a forearm that they immediately cut away from.
I guess that was that.
Yeah.
And now I don't care about that match at all.
I've never seen a worse television show, everybody.
The setup for the finish, there was one point where Anderson tagged in, he took one chin breaker and sold it like he was devastated and dizzy and shit. Then he came in and took the choke slam and kept going. And the finish was, he's standing, I guess he was looking at Devon, but he's standing at the ropes facing out of the ring. Bubba walks up to him from behind, he's looking right at him, and he stops and turns and stands back to back. As this waving neon sign saying, we are setting up for the finish now. And then Morgan went to hit him with a discus lariat, Bubba ducked, and Anderson, of course, took it. He was knocked out cold, reconcussed, and as you noted, Morgan just turned him over and pinned him.
Yeah, didn't care at all.
Nope.
You know, when they first did this concussion storyline, I gave it the benefit of the doubt. But here we are.
That was foolish.
Tomorrow is 2011, and TNA is doing a concussion storyline where the guy with concussion is wrestling every week because he's too tough to take the time off.
Or
What?
Or he's faking the concussion, he's pussy for trying to fake concussion and get sympathy for it. Either way.
They can fuck up anything. You know what I mean? I've now determined they can fuck up anything.
More to the point, they can't not fuck up anything.
Yeah.
They can't do anything right.
Everyone, don't watch this show anymore. That's your New Year's resolution, everyone. Stop watching Impact.
I should start a letter writing campaign to get the show taken off the air.
Well, hey, they got rid of Reaction, and it's not like Impact is knocking them dead.
It's a step.